Chapter 642. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Lousy. You are an unfilial son. The old man's furious roar caused the entire house to tremble slightly. The martial artists who were busy in the other rooms all smiled bitterly when they heard this. Well, from the leader's attitude, it seems like our family's clown young master has returned. Li Hong stood in front of the window, watching the dignified leader of Qianqing camp holding an inkstone and chasing after his son who was about to become the king of martial arts. He couldn't help showing envy and nostalgia in his eyes. In fact, he had already forgiven his father, but he couldn't forgive himself. At that time, he was knocked out by his father without any help. When he woke up, he was in hemp camp. All the familiar people were gone, including his sister, Li Qingling. Li Qing. In the reception area for warriors, the steward with a smooth face looked at the young Li Qing and then showed a big smile. Welcome to join our hemp camp. We like young and strong people like you most. There are 5 people in your team. I will arrange a detached residence for you on the peak of Mountain City. What do you think? Thank you, steward. Li Qing nodded. She couldn't help but sigh inwardly. She was once the little princess of the Thousand City camp and had a noble status. Although she had never looked down on the martial artists who risked their lives in her own camp, she had never felt that they were anything special until she became them. The efficiency of the reception area for warriors was very high. It didn't take long for the steward to stop in front of a spacious and tall detached courtyard with Su Li and others. He handed the key to Li Qing. After Li Qing signed on the registration book, the procedure was finished. Su Li saw all this. Compared with Qingshui Circle, which had all kinds of cultivation methods to support life, Qimo Circle was obviously more primitive. Even warriors lived with mortals in the same way. The rare experience made Su Li vaguely feel that her state of mind was improved. Maybe, if time permitted, she could try to take the risk of going to the star path again. There were exactly 5 rooms in the courtyard. Su Li still adhered to her principle and chose the most inconspicuous one. Li Qing had no choice but to let her do it. After a short rest, everyone gathered again in the middle hall. I haven't taken a hot bath for a long time. Wu Rong changed into the clean clothes provided by the hostel and stretched comfortably. Captain, the treatment of martial artists is too good. Li Qingyan looked at everyone. Except for Su Li, who was still wearing a black gauze dress and looked sick, everyone else was refreshed. She nodded gently and said, the operation rule of the Thousand City Battalion is a perfect circle. She repeated what her father had once told her to her team members. Warriors desperately protect ordinary people, so when we return to the camp, we naturally need to enjoy more than ordinary people. That's what we exchange with our lives. Ordinary people admire martial artists. Naturally, they would want to become martial artists as well. This way, they would be able to obtain an endless supply of martial artists' resources and maintain the peace and contentment of the entire camp. Wow! Wu Rong's eyes sparkled. Captain, you know so much. I admire you so much. Looking at Wu Rong's exaggerated expression, Li Dazhuang couldn't help but laugh out loud. Then, he was immediately rewarded with a slap on the head. With a pitiful expression, he said, I'm already stupid enough, and you still hit me. Dai Hechuan laughed, and then he was also violently beaten by Wu Rong. The team meeting immediately became a mess. Su Li watched this scene quietly with a smile on her face. She seemed to see the Linli building a long time ago. Unfortunately, that kind of time would never return. At this moment, a figure flashed in front of her eyes. It was Li Qingyan who quietly left the main hall. Su Li thought for a while and followed her. In the sky, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. In the place covered by the dead region, there was not a single star. Even so, Li Qingyan still liked to watch it. The starry sky at night was really beautiful. Hearing the footsteps behind her, Li Qingyan sighed and turned her head. Her eyes were bright and gentle. Su Li, would you like to listen to my story? Su Li smiled slightly, and her voice was rarely soft. I'd like to hear the details. Li Qingyan's life experience was very simple. She grew up with her parents. As the daughter of the leader of the Thousand City Battalion and the younger sister of the genius brother, she never knew what was sorrow until a disaster came without warning. All the beauty was lost in an instant. After I woke up, I was with many wandering warriors. It was the captain of the wandering warrior squad who saved me. Li Qingyan's tone was very light. He was determined to save more survivors in the dead region. He taught me a lot. Although my talent was not as good as my brother, it was not worse. In just 20 years, I became the same as him, from a 4th-level warrior to a 6th-level warrior. Then, we met the corpse monsters. It seemed that painful memories were evoked. Li Qingyan's eyes instantly turned red. She said, I don't know where it was. I only know that there were a lot of corpse monsters. I saw so many corpse monsters for the first time. I was completely confused. I didn't even know how I escaped. In the end, I was alone again. I didn't lend a helping hand to my father at that time. I was very resistant to other Thousand City battalions. Besides, I also wanted to inherit the captain's unfulfilled wish, so I set out on the road alone again. Maybe I was lucky enough to run a small camp in 30 years. Li Qingyan smiled and said, but it was an illusion after all. As long as I met the corpse monsters, everything was broken. Fortunately, because of you, I don't have to face too much guilt. Thank you. You don't have to thank me. I was also saved by you. Su Li shook her head gently. She turned her eyes to the sporadic lights at the foot of the mountain and said calmly, you have to be mentally prepared. What? Li Qingyan was stunned. Before she spoke, Su Li said again, it is likely to repeat the same mistakes here. What? Li Qingyan's pupils suddenly shrank. Countless tragic scenes flashed in front of her. Su Li looked serious. She said, I have no evidence. But based on my feeling, the small corpse monster you met is not simple. I can still smell its faint breath on you, so I made some means to isolate its scents. But as long as it is still alive, it won't take long to expand the search. We can find this place. Li Qingyan's face turned pale. She gasped violently, how could this be? It has been 50 years. Obviously, that thing has been killed by the lord of the region. What is it? The corpse monster. Su Li raised her eyebrows. It turned out that the small corpse monster had another name. No. I must tell the leader of Ma battalion about this. Seeing her leave, Su Li did not stop her. Li Qingyan was very smart. She was a survivor of the disaster that year. It was easy to think of the reason for finding the corpse monster. Su Li believed that she would not spill the beans and cause trouble for herself. Of course, more importantly, her injury was almost recovered, but her strength was still at a low level. She was not sure to deal with the so-called corpse monster alone, so she needed help. After all, according to Li Qingyan, it was the lord of the region who finally took action and eliminated the hidden danger. That was to say, it was Qi Tian. Qi Tian's strength was absolutely at the level of the great emperor. Before she was injured, she might be able to fight. But now her strength was too weak. Back in the room, Su Li did not continue to consolidate the improved injury. Finally, she focused all her energy on Suiyu tactics. Not long after the end of the Tianjiao battle, she had already understood the third realm of Suiyu tactics. But because she frequently walked among holy sects, she had no energy to take care of it, so the progress of her cultivation was slowed down. Now she was in a different realm and could not go back to Qingshui Circle for the time being. It was useless to think too much. Finally, she had time to practice. Nothing happened that night. In the morning of the next day, Su Li's door was knocked, which immediately woke her up. She got up and opened the door, only to see Li Qingyan's gloomy face outside the door. Su Li raised her eyebrows and said, "You didn't see him?" Li Qingyan nodded and glanced outside the door. Then she entered the room and closed the door. She sneered, "Everything went well in the camp yesterday. I thought there were not so many dirty things in the camp. However, I still underestimated human nature. The captain stationed on the top of the mountain. Such an important position. I don't know how many people's important information was blocked by him. Such a person deserves to die. What did that person say? What is his strength?" Su Li's tone was calm. Li Qingyan came to her in the morning. Although she didn't say it explicitly, she was asking for help. He hinted me to give him 10,000 jades. Jades are different from the gold currency circulated among ordinary people. They are high-level currency used by warriors for practice. I have used up all the jades in my daily practice. I can't take them out at all. Li Qingyan was very angry. I inquired about the captain. His name is Ding Zhang. He is only a warrior in the 6th level. He acts on his master's power. I see. I will go. If the head of the camp summons you later, you have to think about what to say. After Su Li finished speaking, she pushed the door and left. Li Qingyan stared at her back. Her eyes were full of gratitude. She didn't know how much Su Li's injury had recovered. But since Su Li wanted her to continue to hide her strength, she must have not recovered from her injury. It was really inappropriate to expose her. She was not a fool. Su Li was their backer. If Su Li was exposed and had an accident, all of them would be in trouble. She had already thought about how to tell the head of the Ma camp. After Su Li left the courtyard, she scanned the surroundings with her divine awareness. As expected, she sensed that someone was secretly watching her. She smiled slightly and deliberately walked to a remote dark alley. Plop, plop. After several sounds of her body hitting the ground, Su Li walked out of the alley as usual and walked to the top of the mountain. When she walked to the gate built at the top of the mountain, a middle-aged warrior with a curly beard came out to stop her. He scolded, "This is the restricted area of the Ma camp. Irrelevant people, get out." Su Li looked at him and said calmly, "I have important information to explain to the head face to face." As soon as she said that, the middle-aged warrior immediately laughed. He looked at Su Li and said sarcastically, "How dare a weak female warrior like you say that she can get important information? Why don't you say that a sow can fly to the sky?" Ha ha ha! All the guards burst into laughter. Su Li was still expressionless, as if she didn't hear it. She was so calm that it was creepy. What's the noise? Suddenly, a rebuke came from the top of the mountain. All the laughter stopped abruptly. Chapter 643. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Su Li raised her eyebrows and saw that the person was a middle-aged man in cyan warrior suit. His pneuma was equal to that of nature's test. If she guessed right, he was the Lord of Martial Arts of this camp. Seeing that it was the Lord of Martial Arts who asked in person, the middle-aged man immediately opened the door. "Ding Zhang greets you, Lord." Li Hong glanced at Su Li in the door and frowned, "What's the matter?" Ding Zhang didn't dare to tell the truth and said, "Lord, there is a weak female warrior who comes to make trouble. We are going to drive her away. She is so thin that she can be blown away by a gust of wind." Li Hong didn't want to wait for Ding Zhang's explanation. When he was about to leave, a voice suddenly came from the awareness sea. "You're leaving? No wonder there are people like Ding Zhang." Li Hong stopped abruptly as if he had stepped on Ding Zhang's heart. He turned around and strode toward the door. Ding Zhang suddenly panicked, "Lord, you are busy. Why do you waste your energy on such a weak person?" Li Hong looked at him and sneered, "You call a warrior of the 7th level weak? Who are you?" Ding Zhang was stunned. A warrior of the 7th level? That bean sprout? He looked like a warrior of the 3rd or 4th level. Li Hong walked to Su Li and asked in a gentle tone, "What are you doing here?" Su Li glanced at Ding Zhang, whose face was pale, and said with a chuckle, "In fact, it is not me who is in trouble, but our captain. She came here last night and was also stopped and asked for 10,000 jades." Ding Zhang's face turned pale and he said angrily, "You are slandering me. When did I do this kind of thing? You are slandering me." Su Li didn't look at him. She just stared at Li Hong and continued, "The witnesses are in the dark alley not far from the accommodation of the warriors. They should not wake up. With your power, I believe you can find them soon." Hearing this, Li Hong took a deep look at Ding Zhang, who was completely panicked. He immediately turned his head and said, "Let's go in and talk. Someone will deal with Ding Zhang." Su Li nodded and followed Li Hong into the gate. Ding Zhang's eyes were lifeless as he slumped to the ground. The architectural style of Qimo's circle was quite different from that of Qingshui circle. Most of them were ordinary attics instead of halls. Even the head of Hemp Camp lived in such a place. Su Li followed Li Hong and looked all the way. Suddenly, she raised her head and stared at his side face. She didn't notice it before, but now she saw the outline of his face at a close distance. "What's your name?" Li Hong was speechless. He had never seen such a disrespectful female cultivator. She clearly knew that he was a martial king, yet she did not show any respect. However, he was not a vain person, so he replied, "Li Hong." Su Li narrowed her eyes and transmitted the sound in silence, "Li of Li Camp." Thud. Li Hong stopped for a moment. Then he took Su Li to his study and slammed the door. He grasped Su Li's shoulder tightly and looked nervous. "Are you a survivor of that year?" Su Li gently pushed his hand away and turned around to look at the study. She said, "I was indeed rescued from the dead region, but not from your Li camp." Li Hong was suddenly disappointed. He was absent-minded and didn't notice why Su Li, who was only a warrior of the 7th level, could push his hand away. He was a martial king anyway. After taking a deep breath, he regained his usual calmness and asked, "What information do you need to say here?" Su Li looked calm and spat out 2 words, "Corpse essence." Li Hong was nervous again. "You met each other? Can you come back alive?" "Of course, there are some who didn't come here alive," Su Li perfunctorily said. Li Hong didn't hesitate and said directly, "I will take you to see the head." Su Li shook her head and said, "I said before that I just came to see if I could come in on behalf of our head. I don't know much." "Then take me to see your head." Li Hong frowned. "No one dares to stop him as long as I am here." Su Li suddenly smiled and said meaningfully, "You are very lucky today." Li Hong's heartbeat accelerated slightly. His identity was exposed by Su Li before. He always felt that every word she said had a hidden meaning. "What do you want to say?" "Follow me and you will know." Su Li turned around and left. Li Hong took a light breath and followed her. The speed of Ma-ing was very fast. When Su Li came to the gate again, Ding Zhang was already out of sight. After a while, the courtyard of Li Qing and others was in sight. Su Li didn't stop, but Li Hong's heartbeat was getting faster and faster. He was afraid that his guess was wrong and that he would face another disappointment. The sound of Su Li opening the door immediately made Li Qing come out of the room. Seeing that there was another person besides Su Li, she didn't look at him but directly came over and said happily, "Did you succeed?" Su Li glanced at Li Hong, who had become a statue, and nodded with a smile. "He is the martial king of this camp." "Great! Martial King University." Li Qing showed a relieved smile. She turned around and was about to greet Li Hong respectfully. But when she saw the latter's face, the latter half of the sentence stopped abruptly. She just stared at Li Hong's face blankly, and her eyes gradually turned red. Although this face was no longer high-spirited and full of vicissitudes, and although a lot of beard covered his face, she still recognized him at a glance. Is it you? I'm not dreaming, right?" Li Qing's voice trembled. Li Hong resisted the surge of his heart, hugged Li Qing without saying anything and buried her in his chest. Only in this way could he feel the reality at this moment. Wu Rong and others came out and saw this scene. They were all at a loss. What's wrong with the captain? She couldn't help but run to Su Li and whispered. Su Li shook her head and said, let's leave first and let them talk alone. Wu Rong also felt that it was inappropriate to watch at this moment, so she took Li Dazhuang and Dai Hechuan back to the room. Su Li also returned to her room. With Li Hong's protection, Li Qing could deal with the following things alone. She didn't need to show up. A moment later, Li Hong's face was full of smiles as he tightly held Li Qing's hand. On the way to the leader's study, all the martial artists passing by were surprised to see him. How come he, who usually didn't smile, was smiling like a fool today? Qingling, you have suffered these years. Li Hong's words became much lighter than before when he met his family members. When your teammate Su Li saw me, she should recognize me at a glance. We look very similar. Li Qingling nodded, thanks to her, otherwise I don't know how long it would take to see you. If I knew you were still alive, I wouldn't have wandered outside for so many years. Maybe we could have reunited earlier. The name Li Qing was naturally a pseudonym. The change was also simple, just removing the word Ling. When she had no relatives in the world, it didn't matter what her name was. But since she met her brother, of course, she would restore her original name. Don't say so much. As long as we can see each other, nothing else matters. Okay. The door of the study of the chief was pushed open. The chubby elder had been waiting here for a long time. Seeing the two come in, he also showed a gratified smile. God will reward those who are willing. Li Hong. Now you won't greet people with a sour face all day, right? Li Hong scratched his head and was a little embarrassed. Uncle Ma, thank you for your care these years. Li Qingling also recognized the elder and also called him Uncle Ma. Oh, Uncle Ma, I haven't heard your voice for many years. Alright, I don't like that kind of stuff here. The chubby elder waved his hand and turned to look at Li Qingling. Qingling, it's the best that you can come back alive. Don't say anything else. I heard that you met the zombie demon. Li Qingling stopped smiling and said solemnly, yes. It's in the northeast of Ma Camp, not far. The zombie demon was the size of a palm and looked exactly the same as ordinary small zombie monsters. It was difficult to distinguish. The chubby elder gently nodded, got up and paced slowly in the room for a moment. Then he asked, have the martial kings of the two camps arrived? Yes. Li Qingling was surprised. Uncle Ma, you have already received the news. I know a little, but I don't know the specific direction. Qingling, your information is very timely. The chubby elder pondered for a moment before the bead in his hand suddenly stopped spinning. Where did that kid Jin Tian go? Let him make another trip to the Divine Hall and inform Lord Realm Lord. To the Divine Hall. Li Hong's expression suddenly changed. That's too far. Even if Jin Tian has the 1,000 li divine travel goo, it will take him half a month to go back and forth. Let him go immediately. The chubby elder had a resolute expression. We need to prepare for the worst. Who knows if an accident will happen. Li Hong's heart sank. He immediately said, I know, I will go find him now. Li Qingling blinked her eyes, not understanding what was going on. They were both Thousand City Camp, but Li Camp's history was too short compared to Ma Camp, only a few hundred years. Just now she heard Big Brother say that Ma Camp's history could be traced back to at least 3,000 years ago, that is to say, Uncle Ma was at least 3,000 years old. In Chi Mo domain, he was absolutely an ancient existence. However, in her eyes, there was no difference between Uncle Ma and an ordinary old man. Li Hong was soon busy, and Li Qingling found that she couldn't help him at all. She could only return to her residence first, and move in with her brother after the crisis. The door of Su Li's room was closed. She didn't want to disturb her brother, so she summoned Wu Rong and others and told them about her life experience. Everyone was shocked. It turned out that their captain, who had been wandering outside with them for decades, used to be a princess of Thousand City Camp. Wow! Your brother is the king of martial arts, and he knows the leader of Ma Camp. We have another big backer. Wu Rong's eyes were shining. Li Dazhuang scratched his head and wondered, what do you mean? He couldn't figure it out, but it didn't affect his silly smile. The captain recognized him as her sworn brother, which meant that he suddenly had another sworn brother, the king of martial arts. It was so exciting. The day passed in the joy of reunion. On this day, Ma Camp was still peaceful and happy, without any signs of danger. But Li Qingling always felt that it was the calm before the storm, which was suffocating. Chapter 644. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. It was night, and it was as cold as water. Her brother, Li Hong, was still busy and came to find her. As the right-hand man of Uncle Ma, he had too many arrangements to make. She sat on the steps and waited quietly. After a while, Wu Rong opened the door and sat beside Li Qingling. She was not happy like she was in the daytime, but worried and scared. Captain, actually, we haven't gotten rid of the crisis yet, right? Li Qingling sighed and held Wu Rong in her arms. Don't worry. There are so many strong people guarding Ma Camp. We can definitely get through it. Wu Rong nodded and closed her eyes. She was very sad. Although she was usually crazy and heartless, she knew clearly in her heart. Even the martial kings of Ma Camp were small in front of the giant corpse they met in the camp that day. According to the captain, it was not the giant corpse that was really powerful, but the small corpse monster hanging in the mouth of the giant corpse. In silence, she opened her eyes and glanced at the closed door of Su Li's room. Perhaps, there was a glimmer of hope only when she recovered from her injury. What? Let me go to the immortal hall. Is the old man crazy? Ma Jintian was so scared that the steamed bun in his mouth fell to the ground. He swore, half a month. Half a month. Maybe when I come back, my house will be stolen. I won't go. Li Hong said helplessly, this is your father's order. You have to go. Ma Jintian covered his ears and shrank back to the bed. He said shamelessly, I didn't hear it. Damn it. Ma Camp can't live without me. How can I go? You have to go. The chubby old man walked over with a serious expression. If no one personally notifies the Realm Lord, no one knows if there will be an accident. Don't worry, even if the corpse spirits attack, this old man can still hold on for half a month. You should leave immediately and return as soon as possible. Ma Jintian looked gloomy and said nothing. He knew that the old man was always cautious and had a lot of trump cards. But after all, it was the horrible ghoul that completely destroyed the Qianqing camp in one night. Precisely because the corpse essence is full of variables, if you don't leave this time, the deaths of everyone in Ma Camp will be on your head. The chubby old man emphasized. Ma Jintian's heart trembled. He stood up and waved his hand, get out. I'll go, okay? Smelly old man, you only know how to threaten your own son every day. You don't even know if I'm your biological son. The chubby old man was about to fly into a rage when Li Hong saw this and quickly pulled him out of the room and closed the door. Ma Jintian changed his clothes, and his carefree look disappeared instantly. He might lose everything this time, but he had no choice but to go. He touched his ankle and took out a black goo worm, jumping in his hand. Goo immortal traveling insect, weren't you with Chu Qingning? Why are you with me? So annoying. After 10 minutes, a cyan figure quickly disappeared from the secret exit of the camp, leaving behind a blur that was hard to see, disappearing into the southern horizon. When the chubby elder saw this scene from the top floor, he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He asked Ma Jintian to go out for a reason. If Ma Jintian really couldn't hold on, at least, Uncle Ma. Suddenly, Li Hong's figure appeared behind him, and his voice was heavy and difficult, the sun is gone. The chubby elder's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly walked to the window and looked at the dark sky outside. He couldn't hide his seriousness. The corpse essence came. Ma Jintian just left, which meant that he had to hold on for half a month to have a chance to survive. He suddenly sped up his words, how about the rune matrix? It was just completed yesterday and hasn't been tested yet. Li Hong looked worried. The chubby elder waved his hand, it's too late. Use it directly. Let the rune masters continue to prepare the next rune matrix. The level can be lowered, but it must be at least level 7. Let all the kings of martial arts come to the war building. I will wait for them there. Understood. Li Hong immediately went to deliver the order. When he walked to the gate, he saw his sister Li Qingling waiting there anxiously. He frowned and said, why don't you wait at your residence? What are you doing here? The disaster is coming, isn't it? Li Qingling looked a little nervous, but she was very calm, we need to delay time. Is there anything I can do to help? I have learned some runes these years. It's easy for me to set up level 7 rune matrix. Li Hong's eyes suddenly lit up, I will take you to the rune department. Although he didn't know why Li Qingling knew to delay time, his sister's knowledge of runes really helped a lot. There were not many rune masters in the Maing camp. Besides, many rune masters didn't have time to practice for the level 8 matrix. They were extremely tired. His sister's appearance might give them a moment of respite. After Li Qingling was summoned, only Wu Rong and Li Dazhuang were left in the courtyard. The color of Tianbian is exactly the same as before. Li Dazhuang looked up and stared blankly. He recalled the frightening morning in his mind, there are countless powerhouses in the Qianqing camp. They should be able to resist it, right? Who knows? Dai Hechuan peeled the snacks in his hand and said indifferently, anyway, we can't help anything with our little strength. We will die if we go there. We are too weak. Wu Rong sighed. At this moment, the door on the left was suddenly pushed open. Su Li came out and saw 3 people sitting on the steps. She smiled, I have a request. Are you willing to help me? Wu Rong shivered and immediately stood up, Su Li, are you out of practice? How is your injury? Su Li shook her head, almost. I need you to delay time. We? Wu Rong pointed at her nose with great doubts in her eyes, we can also delay time. Su Li smiled faintly, can you do it according to the arrangement I said? Of course. Wu Rong patted her chest with infinite enthusiasm in her eyes, I will go through fire and water without hesitation. Li Dazhuang scratched his head and still didn't quite understand. Dai Hechuan was thoughtful. He had long suspected that it was not a coincidence that the captain and the other 2 could escape from the giant corpse last time. Seeing Wu Rong's reaction, the answer was obvious. Then, come and hold my hand. After Su Li said that, Wu Rong was the first to hold Su Li's outstretched hand. The next moment, she felt that there was an extra voice in her mind. This voice will guide you what to do. Dazhuang, you also come. Ah. Oh. Li Dazhuang went forward in a daze. Although he didn't understand, he just had to do as she said. Dai Hechuan also consciously went forward to receive a ghost possession. These ghosts were naturally provided by the first elder of the Ling family. They were low-level ghosts without intelligence. After Su Li transmitted instructions to them, they could be used as carrier runes in disguise. The 3 received the task and soon went out separately. Su Li returned to the room and hurried to make a breakthrough. It took a lot of time to make the ghost restriction. This was the only killing matrix in the restriction of ghosts. It took her a lot of time to carve all the forbidden patterns and distribute them to the 3 ghosts. This ghost restriction was called Red Lotus of Purgatory. Although it was not as good as the trump card used by Qingshui nun in the Ziyin house, it was not much worse. Moreover, it didn't cost anyone's life. At most, the rune matrix could not bear the burden and would be destroyed. Wu Rong walked on the edge of the mountain city and carefully inserted the forbidden patterns into the ground according to the instructions of the voice in her mind. She found that others seemed to be unable to see the flickering of the forbidden patterns. At most, they would think that her behavior was a little strange, which made her relax a little. As she walked, she came to the city gate. At this moment, the city gate was full of warriors. They surrounded the city gate tightly. She managed to squeeze to the designated place to bury the forbidden patterns. When she straightened up and looked up, she found that the sky was covered with dark clouds. It was so dark that it seemed that she could reach it with her hands. Everyone looked serious. The oppressive atmosphere made Wu Rong a little breathless. There is one last place. Wu Rong was squeezed by the warriors. She was cursed in a low voice. She apologized again and again. Finally, she came to the last place. Unexpectedly, she was under the nose of a martial king in red. She swallowed her saliva and braced herself to move forward. She pretended to ask, "Lord, here, what happened?" As she asked, she didn't forget to bury the last piece of forbidden pattern in the ground. Although the martial king in red heard the voice, he did not see it. His burning eyes stared at the dark clouds. He said coldly, "Maing is in great danger. This place is dangerous. It is not a place for a rank 6 warrior like you. You can either retreat to that group of warriors as a backup or go to the logistics department to help." Although his voice was cold, Wu Rong felt warm in her heart. Coincidentally, she saw that the forbidden pattern had completely merged into the ground. She nodded and was about to turn around and leave. Suddenly, boom! The earth shook and the mountains shook. The ordinary people who were still sleeping in the morning were immediately awakened by this loud bang. The entire Maing fell into chaos in the blink of an eye. Wu Rong's body became unstable and she almost fell. However, she did not care about herself. She quickly looked at the place where she had planted the forbidden pattern. Only when she found that it had not been shaken out did she feel a little relieved. With her vision, she naturally could not understand that the place where she had planted the forbidden pattern was not a real thing. The martial king in red had already jumped onto the city wall to watch. Naturally, he did not see her abnormal behavior. Wu Rong immediately rushed into the group of warriors and went back to report to Su Li. There were more than 20 people on the city wall. Seeing the martial king in red coming up, the others looked at him and nodded to greet him. The martial king in red walked to the slightly fat old man standing on the city wall tower. He slightly lowered his head and asked, "Leader Ma, how is the situation?" "Not bad." The slightly fat old man stared at the outline of the giant corpse that was slowly appearing in the distance. There are only signs of one giant corpse. Compared with Li Ying, there are 2 less. At this moment, there are 20 martial kings guarding the camp, including you, which is 12 more than Li Ying. Even if we can't kill the giant corpse, we can restrain it. The rune matrix of the 8th level has been completed. You are free to form teams and take turns to restrain the giant corpse. Leave enough time to rest and maintain your strength. Hearing this, the martial king in red could not help but show admiration. "Leader Ma, you are really thoughtful. Why don't you form a group of 5? We are the foreign martial kings who came to help, so there are 5 of us." As soon as the martial king in red finished speaking, he saw a tall and thin warrior dressed like a scout rushing over and shouting, "Leader, we found another giant corpse. The second one." Chapter 645. You can search for Poison Wife on Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. The pupils of the slightly plump old man shrank. He quickly snatched the report from the scout's hands. After taking a closer look, he turned his head to look at the red-clothed martial king and said solemnly, "It looks like your rest time will be halved." "It's fine." The red-clothed martial king did not dare to delay any longer. "I'll make the arrangements now." The slightly plump old man nodded. His eyes flashed with deep worry. Even though he had experienced countless trials and tribulations in the past 3,000 years, this was the first time he was facing a corpse spirit. Could he really protect Maing? No matter what the people of this era did, they were very fast. In less than half a cup of tea's time, 10 martial kings split into 2 teams. They turned into streams of light and flew in the direction of the 2 giant corpses. Their mission was to slow down the giant corpses' progress towards Maing. It would be best if they could repel them. Among the first batch of martial kings, the red-clothed martial king was among them. Furthermore, he was the captain of the first team. The other 4 martial kings were personally trained by him, so they naturally had a tacit understanding of each other. When we come into contact with the giant corpses later, I'll take the lead and test it out. You guys go to the side and see if there are any dangers around. The red-clothed martial king transmitted his voice. The 4 of them nodded in unison, calm and cautious. Soon, the 5 of them rushed into the black mist. The huge silhouette of the giant corpse appeared in front of them. The red-clothed martial king narrowed his eyes and a blood-colored spear appeared in his hand. He immediately accelerated and turned into a sanguine light that accurately pierced the black mark on the giant corpse's chest. The red-clothed martial king was not Wu Rong. His speed was extremely fast. The clumsy giant corpse was naturally unable to block it. The sanguine light instantly pierced the black mark. Good. When the 4 martial kings saw this scene, they were pleasantly surprised. Only the red-clothed martial king, who was alone in the sanguine light, had a sudden change in expression. Without saying a word, he retreated to the side of the 4. The hand that held the spear opened up and was covered in blood. The pupils of the 4 of them shrank. They knew how powerful their captain was, but he was actually injured in the first strike. It's different. The red-clothed martial king looked at the clumsy giant corpse in the distance and saw the white dot on the black mark. His tone became complicated. The giant corpse that appeared is different from Li Ying's. It's too hard. I suspect that the black mark is not a death spot at all. At this point, the red-clothed martial king's tone sank. It will be much more difficult to restrain it than we imagined. Let's send the news first. The news quickly reached the slightly fat old man's ears. Did the weakness change? The chubby old man pondered for a moment. It's fine. Since there are only giant corpses and no corpse spirits, we still have time. While the martial kings were restraining them, they might as well try to find new weaknesses in these giant corpses. Xiao Hong, Li and Marshal, Li said. Li Hong stepped forward and nodded, revealing a trace of a smile. Fortunately, although there was no test, the level 8 runic array was successfully activated. The level 7 runic array is also being prepared quickly. With the addition of Qingling, the efficiency has increased significantly. Very good. Qingling is also a good child. Go and coordinate the rotation of martial kings. Do not make any mistakes. I understand. Li Hong turned around and descended the city wall. Seeing him leave, the middle-aged martial king standing on the other side of the chubby old man could not help but snort coldly, "Humph! Coward! Leader, forgive me for being blunt, but you are too partial to him. We have 11 martial kings in my camp. Why can't he go to the battlefield?" As soon as he said this, the other 10 martial kings waiting on the wall had a change in their expressions. The slightly fat old man chuckled. His eyes were as sharp as a knife. He said slowly, "I have always been fair. Li Hong has his reasons for not fighting. All of you do not have to feel that it is unfair. As for Ding Gang, if you are unhappy because of your younger brother's punishment, you can explain it to this old man. If you are trying to sow discord because of your selfish motives, do you know what you are doing?" Ding Gang's expression changed slightly. He was indeed unhappy because of his brother, Ding Zhang. He did not think about the consequences. The others also calmed down. Since Ding Gang had his reasons, they chose to believe in their leader. At this moment, Wu Rong ran all the way back to the courtyard. She saw Dai Hechuan and Li Dazhuang waiting in front of the steps. She was the last one to return. "Have you all arranged it?" she asked. Dai Hechuan and Li Dazhuang both nodded. "I heard a loud noise just now. Has the battle started in front of the city gate?" Dai Hechuan looked worried. Wu Rong forced a smile, "It doesn't matter. I saw many martial kings on the wall. I only saw dark clouds and didn't see the shadow of the giant corpse." "That's good. Daihechuan nodded and turned to look at Su Li's house. I don't know how long it will take for her to come out. Wu Rong frowned and said firmly, the captain was called to help. We can't just wait. Dezhuang, He Chun, let's take turns to inquire about the news from now on. We must make sure that we can know the movement in the front line as soon as possible. Okay. Li Dezhuang smiled, we can still do such a simple thing. At the same time, outside the big tactical matrix of Qimo Circle in Jiuzhou region of Qingshui Circle, Ling Li held his sword and stood aside. Suddenly, a golden flowing light appeared from the nothingness and turned into a carrier rune. Hua Yan's anxious and uneasy voice came from it. Fellow practitioner Ling. Bai Mo comes again. Please. He suddenly opened his eyes. As the golden light flowed, his scattered black hair fluttered without wind. A dragon-shaped phantom appeared behind him. The noble and indifferent dragon eyes looked down at the big tactical matrix as if it was an ant. Open! Ling Li shouted coldly, and the golden dragon's shadow blasted out with his right fist. The dragon's shadow roared to the sky, and the golden energy poured out. Boom! In an instant, the world shook. The white tactical matrix was contaminated by the golden color. A little crack appeared from the center, and then the crack spread out quickly like a spider web. Ling Li saw it and punched again without saying a word. Clatter! The seal collapsed in an instant, and a human-sized hole appeared in front of him. At this moment, Qi Tian, who was far away in the immortal hall of Qimo Circle, suddenly opened his eyes and disappeared from the throne in the blink of an eye. Ling Li suddenly felt a suffocating pressure coming to his face. Before he could avoid it, a tall red-haired man appeared in front of him and looked at him with a serious expression. Did you break the seal? Why did you call me here? Ling Li had seen Qi Tian from a distance, so he naturally knew his identity. He nodded quickly and said, I'm Ling Li. I'm invited by Lord Hua of Ni Sect to help. I didn't expect that there was someone who could break the seal in this world except the Grand Elder Su. Qi Tian nodded and smiled casually. What's the matter with the Grand Elder Su? Ling Li looked slightly serious, and Qi Tian immediately stopped smiling. He said in a deep voice, what happened? After a while, in the main hall of Ni Sect. When Hua Yan saw Qi Tian come in, she finally felt relieved and thanked Ling Li repeatedly. Fortunately, she believed him once, otherwise Ni Sect would be in danger this time. Lord Qi Tian, thank you. Hua Yan looked ashamed, our Grand Elder is still missing. I just received the news that there is a new movement in the Fate Palace. If Bai Mo comes in person, we can't resist him at all. Only you can take charge. Qi Tian shook his head and said in a relaxed tone, I have heard about the Grand Elder Su from Ling Li. Lord Hua doesn't need to worry too much. Since I show up, Bai Mo can't take advantage of it. Thank you, Lord Qi Tian. Hua Yan said gratefully. Then she changed the topic and talked about the battle in Xiyan House. In fact, the Grand Elder made a contribution last time. In just half a month, Tianyik Attic sent the news that the 50 Grand Elders of holy sects controlled by the Fate Palace had all died. The sects were in chaos and could not pose a threat to our sect. And the remaining 30 holy sects were all declared to belong to our Ni sect. As soon as these words came out, even Qi Tian was stunned. 50 Grand Elders of holy sects, that was 50 junior emperors, not cabbages. How on earth did Su Li kill 50 junior emperors together in that battle? Moreover, it was extremely abnormal that the remaining 30 holy sects changed sides together. Su Li must have played a role in it. Otherwise, why didn't Bai Mo detonate the poisonous life insect and let those junior emperors change sides? Qi Tian sighed deeply, and his eyes were complicated. What on earth did the little girl do? In terms of destructive power, his ability seemed to be far inferior to hers. In addition, Qi Tian finally saw a glimmer of hope that Bai Mo would be defeated and he could save the creatures of Qimo Circle. Compared with Qingshui Circle, Qimo Circle was too small. Even if all the people of Qimo Circle were accepted, it would not have any impact. And because of the decline of Chimo's circle, the warrior's lifespan was not long. Except for him, no one lived more than 10,000 years. That was to say, except for him, no one had the mark of the natural law and would not be rejected by this circle. This was the best solution. I hope I can succeed before the destruction of Chimo's circle. Thinking of this, Qi Tian looked up and said to Hua Yan, during this time, I will stay at the entrance of the seal with Ling Li to protect Ni sect. The pressure of expulsion is much less there, but the restriction of the natural law still exists. I can only stay for a month at most, and then I have to go back to rest for a while. That's enough. Thank you for coming here. Hua Yan was slightly relieved, and her eyes flashed. Although the Grand Elder is not here, our Ni sect is not powerless at the moment. If the Fate Palace attacks, I can deal with other enemies except by Mo. Ha ha ha, you are the best friend of Grand Elder Su. I naturally believe you. Qi Tian laughed heartily, and his figure disappeared in the hall. Ling Li nodded to Hua Yan and was about to leave, but Hua Yan stopped him. Wait. Fang Yuan also went back to Tianhe sect these days. Why don't you go, to see him? Ling Li's body suddenly shook, and finally left the hall silently without saying anything. This father and son are really. Hua Yan shook her head and smiled bitterly. She didn't know when this knot could be untied. Ling Li went out of the hall. After thinking for a while, he finally came to the house where Su Buwang lived. He stood outside the house and stretched out his hand to knock on the door, but he couldn't do it. After a long time, he slightly pursed his lips and sighed in his heart. He turned around and was about to leave, but he saw Su Buwang behind him, holding a basket of wine and looking at him coldly. Why are you here? Su Buwang turned his head and glanced at him. He snorted coldly and walked directly past him with the wine. You are not welcome here, you know. Chapter 646. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Hearing Su Buwang's cold words, Ling Li felt bitter in his heart, but he didn't show it. He just nodded and said, I'll go now. He turned around, but he heard a sound of something breaking through the air behind him. He thought for a while and didn't hide. Crash! The wine bottle burst directly from the top of his head, and the pieces were scattered on the ground. The wine was poured all over Ling Li, and the smell of alcohol was overwhelming. Don't think that I will forgive you if you leave Xingtian Shrine and chase me here. Su Buwang panted heavily and blushed. He shouted hysterically, any difficulties you have nothing to do with me. Don't come here in the future. Disgusting. Get out. Every word of Su Buwang was like a knife, stabbing into Ling Li's heart. Ling Li gently covered his chest and smiled bitterly with a pale face. His mouth was really vicious. He was really like his mother at this point. Sighing softly, Ling Li didn't look at Su Buwang again and left silently. Until his figure completely disappeared in front of the courtyard, the fierce look on Su Buwang's face disappeared instantly, and he was full of loss. He sat on the ground with the wine basket in his arms and looked at the wine stain on the ground in front of him. He didn't know what to feel. It was Su Buwang's fault. He drove him away, but why did he feel empty in his heart? Ah! Su Buwang roared angrily. He opened the wine bottle and drank it. He didn't want to think about anything, and he was even more unwilling to forgive him. Ling Li returned to the sealed entrance of Chimo's circle. Qi Tian was surprised to see that he was full of alcohol, but he didn't ask much and continued to close his eyes to rest. 4 days later. In the central hall of Chimo's circle, Ma Jintian looked pale and breathless at the towering hall tower in front of him. It almost took him to cross half of Chimo's circle from Maing to the hall. It should have taken him 7 days, but it only took him 4 days. Obviously, it cost a lot. After recovering some strength, Ma Jintian took out the token of Maing and threw it into the groove of the hall. The next moment, the gate of the hall opened, and he immediately flashed in. What? Milord Realm went to seal the exit? When Ma Jintian heard this, his face became paler. He had no energy to go to other places. The person who received Ma Jintian was a young man in a blue martial artist's suit. He was surrounded by frost and looked gentle. Looks like you used some extreme methods to get here as soon as possible. That's why you've lost a lot of your blood qi. After the youth said that, he took out a blood essence from his universe ring and handed it over. Eat it. Lord Bingfeng, this, Ma Jintian looked at the blood essence in the young man's hand. It was a holy thing for replenishing qi and blood. Only martial emperors were qualified to use it. It was a strategic material. Just eat when I tell you to. Bing Feng's smile was very warm. It's a special time now. It doesn't matter who uses it. My speed is not as fast as yours, you should hurry up and recover, then bring me back to camp first. As for the Realm Lord, I have his divine sense, as long as he returns, I can immediately send a message to him, no need to worry. Hearing this, Ma Jintian's doubts disappeared. He took the blood essence and absorbed it without saying anything. At this moment, Ma Jintian had held on for 6 days under the attack of the zombies. The city wall was still towering, but the level 8 rune matrix had been damaged to a considerable extent. On the city wall, a group of 20 martial kings were taking the time to recover. They relied on the rune matrix to resist the 2 giant corpses in front of them. The rune matrix can't hold on for a long time. The martial king in red opened his eyes. His eyes were full of heavy exhaustion, so were the other martial kings. The plan couldn't keep up with the changes. The giant corpses were more difficult to deal with than everyone imagined. Ordinary martial kings couldn't have the strength and hardness. In order to slow down the giant corpses, they had to fight together. Therefore, they lost the time to rest. The 20 people held on for 3 days and 3 nights. Finally, they couldn't hold on anymore and returned to the city wall. Without the martial king's entanglement, the giant corpses' progress was naturally faster. Soon, they were dozens of feet away from the city wall. They didn't stop until they touched the level 8 rune matrix. The level 8 rune matrix didn't let them down. It had held on for 1 day and 1 night. Obviously, it was wishful thinking to rely on it to hold on until Ma Jintian came back. Li Hong took a deep breath and took a step forward. His eyes were clear. Uncle Ma, let me go. The chubby old man felt pity, but he didn't stop him this time. He turned to Ding Gang and others. Have you had a good rest? I need a team to cooperate with you. Ding Gang looked at Li Hong in astonishment and then looked at the chubby old man. The coward actually took the initiative to come forward. Seeing that Ding Gang didn't speak for a long time, the chubby old man frowned slightly. But at this time, the martial king in red stood up and said in a deep voice, Leader Ma, do you need help? I can take action after I recover some strength. The chubby old man nodded and said solemnly, originally, I wanted to see if we could find a chance to deal with the 2 giant corpses by ourselves. But since the weakness has disappeared, we can't find a new weakness. Li Hong will deal with 1 giant corpse alone. The other one will be divided into 3 groups. In this way, you can make time to rest. What? Li Hong will deal with 1 giant corpse alone. Ding Gang cried out in horror, how is this possible? That is a giant corpse. Li Hong turned around. His gaze was like a blade, extremely dazzling. Ding Gang's body suddenly trembled and he instantly lost his voice. At this moment, he finally felt the former's strength. At this time, the senior martial king beside him sighed and privately transmitted his voice, Ding Gang, you came late and don't know. When Li Hong was young, he was the strongest in our Ma camp, and now it has been 10 years. Li Hong, so you are the Ma camp's saber king. The eyes of the martial king in red flashed and he laughed heartily, no wonder. I have been wondering why the strongest expert of Ma camp hasn't appeared yet. Good. Today, I have the honor to fight side by side with the saber king. Li Hong didn't say much. He gently nodded and pointed to the giant corpse on the left, I'll leave this one to you. Try not to let it continue to destroy the rune array and try not to get injured. Do what you can. All right. The 20 people were quickly redistributed. 2 teams of 7 people and 1 team of 6 people. Li Hong stared at the giant corpse, his eyes filled with killing intent. A long, snow-white saber appeared in his hand. Let's go. Boom. After a day and a night, the loud sound began to reverberate in the ears of the residents of Ma Camp. Ordinary people couldn't do anything but walk to the gate and put their hands together to pray for the warriors. In the rune camp, Li Qingling's right hand holding the rune pen trembled slightly. Her forehead was sweating and her face was pale. She hadn't rested for 4 days, but she still didn't want to stop. She didn't dare to stop. Every extra moment to carve runes meant a little more chance of survival. Some of the other rune masters in the rune camp had not rested for nearly a month and directly fainted from exhaustion. Wu Rong, Li Dazhuang, and Dai Hechuan constantly shuttled back and forth in the city to ensure that Su Li could get the latest news when she woke up. At this moment, they were fighting for survival. Crack, the long saber scratched the back of the giant corpse, just like a blunt knife cutting the rotten leather. It made a harsh and unpleasant sound. Li Hong's eyes didn't change. He gently stepped on the shoulders of the giant corpse and turned over flexibly to the front of the giant corpse. He held his breath and waited. On the city wall, many inexperienced warriors were all shocked. Master Li really stopped a giant corpse by himself? Too strong. Although Lord Li is usually serious, I have never seen him fight. I really can't see it at all. Great. We can still hold on. Ding Gang leaned against the bricks of the city wall and looked at Li Hong's back. With a complicated expression, he took a deep breath and cursed in a low voice, "Bastard, you lied to me again. When we go back this time, I will throw you into the scout camp." Hearing this, many kings of martial arts smiled and relaxed for a while. Ding Gang's younger brother, Ding Zhang, was not a secret. Morale rose a lot because of Li Hong's appearance. But warriors fought with their own pneuma and blood, not with the help of heaven and earth. In a normal battle, warriors were brave. If a practitioner of the same level was close to them, he might be defeated in an instant. This was also the reason why the Qimo Circle and the Qingshui Circle could win the war when they were outnumbered. But if a monster like the giant corpse was delayed, the shortcomings of warriors would immediately show. Their means were too simple. Their endurance was too poor. After consuming too much pneuma and blood, it would take a long time to replenish it. So, just 3 days later, above the city wall, 20 kings of martial arts were lying on the ground. They were all exhausted and couldn't fight anymore. Li Hong's face was slightly pale. He stood on the top of the city wall and pressed his lips tightly. He looked at the giant corpse who was using his giant arms to destroy the rune matrix without rest. He still had the strength to fight. But if he fought with 2 giant corpses alone, it was very likely that he couldn't come back. So, it was useless to delay the battle. Uncle Ma. He took a deep breath and walked to the chubby elder. He whispered, "The rune matrix can hold on for half a day at most." The chubby elder nodded and still looked calm. Today is the 5th day. Li Hong was in a dilemma. Only he could understand Uncle Ma's words. It would take half a month for Ma Jintian to ask for help. Only 5 days had passed out of the 15 days. They still had to hold on for 10 days. The chubby elder turned his hand and took out a palm-sized stove. He looked hesitant for the first time. This thing could help the camp to hold on for 5 days. But how could they make up for the gap of 5 days? Li Hong's eyes changed slightly when he saw the stove in the elder's hand. Uncle Ma's cultivation was not high. When he was in danger that year, Uncle Ma relied on this thing to save him from the corpses. He couldn't understand the words on this thing. It must be an ancient treasure. But Uncle Ma didn't dare to use it now. It meant, even such a treasure might not be able to resist the giant corpses for a long time. Half a day seemed long, but it was extremely short under the attack of the giant corpses. More and more cracks appeared on the rune matrix. The rune matrix was about to be broken. The warriors who watched in the city gradually became desperate. The chubby elder sighed. No matter what, he had to save the camp first. He flipped his palms and made a strange gesture. If Suli were here, she would definitely see that the gesture was somewhat similar to the treasure Milky Way. But before the gesture was finished, the two giant corpses suddenly raised their heads and roared. Four fists bombarded the place where the rune matrix was broken. Everyone's expression suddenly changed. Boom! Chapter 647. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. This time, the deafening rumble was fiercer than any other time. The entire mountain city was affected. Under the recoil, the ground trembled violently. Fine cracks spread out from the mountain, and the pots and pans in the houses of the commoners were scattered all over the ground. The rune matrix was broken. Ma Ying had no means to protect himself. Panic was boiling. Roar! Ha ha ha! On the city wall, the iconic strange cry made Li Hong's pupils shrink. He stared at the giant mouth of the giant corpse on the left. Sure enough, a small corpse monster the size of a palm appeared in front of everyone. It arrogantly showed its sharp teeth, which was ghastly and horrible. The corpse monster. Li Hong's killing intent soared. He was about to rush out of the city wall, but the corpse monster suddenly disappeared in front of him. It turned into a shadow and rushed to the chubby elder. Oh no, its target is the leader. The face of the martial king in red changed dramatically, but his tired body couldn't keep up. Li Hong couldn't turn back to rescue the leader. Uncle Ma, retreat. At the moment of life and death, the chubby elder was tense. He didn't retreat at all. He made gestures faster, but he was still a little slower than the speed of the corpse monster. At this moment, the news finally spread to the courtyard from the mouth of Wu Rong and the other two. Bad news, Suli, the rune matrix is broken. In the room, Suli suddenly opened her closed eyes, and temporarily suppressed the intention of breakthrough in her eyes. She pressed her hands on the ghost matrix pattern that had been prepared on the ground. Her eyes were shining, and she said calmly, "Open for me." Buzz! The black rune appeared and broke through the void in the blink of an eye. All the forbidden patterns that had been buried before were instantly activated and turned into a big black net. On the city wall, the moment when the corpse monster was about to scratch the forehead of the chubby elder, the black rune barrier appeared behind the chubby elder without warning. It expanded in an instant and directly knocked the corpse monster away. Squeak! The corpse spirit screamed in exasperation as it scuttled back into the black mist, disappearing without a trace. The chubby elder made gestures in his hands, but he didn't intend to continue. He stared at the big black matrix that suddenly appeared above his head and didn't come to his senses for a long time. Not only him, but the entire city wall fell into a deathly silence. It seemed like a long time had passed since the corpse spirit had suffered a fatal blow, but in reality, it had only been an instant. Before anyone could react, it had already been over. The chubby old man put away the furnace and pointed at the black curtain above his head to Li Hong. He asked doubtfully, "Which rune master arranged this?" Li Hong shook his head in a daze. The rune camp being able to draw an 8th level array is already the limit. Such an array, Li Hong stared at the black runes on the light curtain. He reached out and touched it. It was cold to the touch. He scratched his head and asked in confusion, "Uncle Ma, can I touch the rune array?" The chubby old man's pupils shrank. He reached out his hand and touched the rippling barrier in front of him. He immediately fell into silence. What happened? The martial kings looked at each other in dismay. The scene just now was too thrilling. Now that everyone had come back to their senses, they felt like they had been on a roller coaster. Their hearts surged with emotions, fluctuating up and down. It doesn't seem like it. The leader of the Ma camp seems to be confused as well. Don't worry about it. Since the corpse spirit suffered a setback for the time being, let's hurry up and recover. The martial king in red leaned against the city wall and sat down, closing his eyes. Hong, go and have a rest. If it is really the thing I guessed, you don't have to worry too much for the time being. The chubby old man suddenly said with a smile, it seems that there is a hidden expert in our camp. Li Hong was confused. What did Uncle Ma see? Could such a thin layer of black curtain really resist the attack of the giant corpse? He was deeply doubtful. But after many years of getting along, he chose to believe in the chief for once. The alert of the city gate has been lowered. Wu Rong heard the news that Dai Hechuan had just sent back. She couldn't help but look up at the sky blankly and murmured, was the black thing covering the camp really arranged by the three of us? Dai Hechuan also looked up at the sky and muttered, although I don't believe it, but, the fact is in front of us. Su Li took out a matrix casually and asked the three of them to arrange it. It was even more powerful than the 8th level array arranged by a group of rune masters in the rune camp. It directly lowered the alert of the city gate. Su Li, how powerful was she? Dai Hechuan couldn't help but think of the scene when he rescued Su Li from the black stone, and his scalp was numb. It seemed that he really saved a great person. You guys, what are you doing? At this time, Li Qingling pushed the door with a tired face. Captain! You are back. Wu Rong's eyes brightened and immediately ran over. Li Qingling smiled and nodded, I have done everything I can. The masters in the rune camp are all tired and fainted. I can't change the situation by myself. So, eldest brother asked me to come back first. Well, then you go and have a rest. Wu Rong looked at Li Qingling's eyes which were as red as a rabbit's and couldn't help but feel distressed. The rune matrix was really exhausting. They didn't sleep for 5 days and 5 nights, but they were still energetic, but the captain was so tired. Li Qingling responded and was about to go to sleep. A figure appeared in front of the courtyard door. It was Li Hong. Eldest brother. Li Qingling's eyes brightened and immediately ran over. Qingling, you are tired. Seeing Li Qingling, the seriousness on Li Hong's face immediately melted, leaving only the mellow and gentleness of an elder brother. Go and have a rest. Has the city gate been stabilized? Li Qingling saw the exhaustion and doubt in his eldest brother's eyes and couldn't help but ask with concern. Uncle Ma said it was temporarily stabilized, but maybe only he knows when it will be unstable. Li Hong was helpless. He had just confirmed that this powerful protective black screen was indeed not arranged by any of them. The result could only be as what Uncle Ma said. There was a hidden strong person in Ma camp, but he didn't know why that person was not willing to show up until now. Where is your teammate named Su Li? Why didn't I see her? Li Hong stopped thinking and said seriously, I came here specially to thank her. Without her, we may not be able to recognize each other under the crisis of the city. What you said makes sense, but Su Li has been practicing in isolation for several days. Even I can't see her. Li Qingling explained and pointed to the closed door. I see. That's a pity. Li Hong said regretfully. He was not sure about the survival of Ma camp this time. Maybe, it was very likely that he would never have a chance to thank Su Li this time. He turned back and touched Li Qingling's soft hair. His eyes were full of tenderness and concern. Take good care of yourself. I'm going to work. Yes. Don't worry, eldest brother. Li Qingling didn't say much and quietly watched her brother leave. She knew very well that her eldest brother Li Hong didn't have much confidence in the victory of the attack of the zombies. Ma camp persisted for 6 days without the arrival of the Lord of the Realm. There must be something wrong. Captain, let's go inside and talk. Wu Rong closed the courtyard door and exchanged a look with Li Dazhuang and Li Qingling. Then they pushed Li Qingling, who was puzzled, into the room. After a moment, what? This black curtain was set up by you? Li Qingling was stunned. Wu Rong scratched her head embarrassedly and said with a red face, not really. Su Li asked us to go there. Yes. It took me several hours to set it up. Li Dazhuang said proudly with a red face. Li Qingling suddenly felt funny. Now all the warriors in Ma camp were discussing who the strong person behind the black screen was. She originally guessed that it was Suli, but when she thought that Suli was practicing in isolation, she didn't think much. Whoever thought that it was the three reckless muggles who completed the feat of saving the first camp? The most incredible thing was that Wu Rong and the other two didn't know the tactical matrix at all. How on earth did Suli let them arrange the tactical matrix in Ma camp accurately? For this point, Wu Rong and the other two explained more mysteriously. Li Qingling was confused and finally could only helplessly smile. She turned her head to look at the closed door and whispered to herself in her heart. Be sure to catch up. Be sure to catch up. Ah! Ma Jintian's hair stood erect. He raised his head and roared. He swallowed the remaining half of the blood essence in his mouth. Suddenly, there was smoke under his feet. Like a wild horse, he left a long trace of grass and trees. There was a specially made long whip tied around his waist, and the other end of the whip was suspended in midair. Bing Feng, a young man in a blue warrior suit, changed the ice shield in front of him into the shape with the least wind pressure. He looked helpless and curious. Under such wind pressure, even he had to light up the ice shield, otherwise, it would damage his image. The poisonous insect traveling for 1,000 miles is really worthy of its reputation. This speed is 50% faster than my flying speed. Bing Feng sighed and looked at the young man running on the ground. Maybe in the whole Chimo circle, only the Lord of Realm could be faster than him. Reincarnation Mirror was really a magical place. On the city wall, the chubby elder sat in the center of the city gate and was shocked to see the gray skin of the two giant corpses gradually eroded by the black color because of frequent attacks on the tactical matrix. This was not a simple tactical matrix of Qingshui Circle, but a long-lost tactical matrix of Qingshui Circle. Only the tactical matrix of Qingshui Circle could turn invisible into tangible, maintain a strong protection ability, and have such a strange attack ability. Even the giant corpses were injured under the recoil. It should be known that the 21 martial kings worked hard for 5 days and 5 nights, but only left a trace on the giant corpses. But the mysterious man did it without any effort. Which old monster of Qingshui Circle is hiding in Chimo Circle? Does the Lord of Realm know about it? The chubby elder had a lot of thoughts, but he was less worried. Anyway, the mysterious man could take action, and this tactical matrix was so powerful that the giant corpses couldn't do anything to it. It was much easier for Mine to hold on until the rescue of the Immortal Hall. He didn't even need to use the only magic treasure in his hand. Thud! 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 Suddenly, the sound of flurried footsteps came from behind. The chubby elder frowned slightly and turned his head. What he saw immediately made his heart skip a beat. Chapter 648. You can search for Poisonous Wife on Baidu. You can search for the latest chapter. Drip, drip, the scout's face was covered in blood as he stared at the chubby elder with a dull look in his eyes. His voice, which was usually firm and resolute, was choked with sobs. It's over, leader, it's over. What's going on? The chubby old man stood up and shouted, Wake up. Calm down. What did you see? Perhaps it was the chubby old man's calm face that comforted the scout's heart. He gradually calmed down and said with grief and indignation, We found a large number of giant corpses in the black fog. The number is no less than 20, maybe even more. In order to find out the exact number of giant corpses, all the martial artists of the scout camp died in battle. I am the only one left to report. As soon as these words came out, the entire place fell into a deathly silence. It was like a bolt from the blue, bombarding the chubby old man's heart. 20 giant corpses. He gasped and held the city wall with one hand. He suddenly turned his head and stared into the depths of the black fog. It was as if he could hear the familiar and arrogant cries of the corpse spirits in the black fog. One corpse spirit could actually command 20 giant corpses to fight? This number had far exceeded the giant corpses that Li Ying had encountered in the past. It was also far beyond the limit of what they could handle. How could this be? The red-clothed Martial King's body was cold. His blood was frozen by the sudden bad news. How could there be intact eggs when the nest was overturned? If even the strong camp was destroyed by the corpse spirits, then their camp would be next. Ding Zhang's smile was uglier than crying. 20, one for each of us. Are you joking? Leader. Li Hong quickly received the news and rushed over. His face was gloomy. Is the scout's news true? The chubby old man looked at the churning black fog outside the city wall and sighed. Announce it to the whole city. This is a disaster that we can't stop. They should have the right to know. Li Hong trembled and clenched his fists. His eyes were red as he gritted his teeth and said, Uncle Ma, are you giving up? The slightly plump old man was silent. The dark green jade furnace flew out from his sleeve again and gradually rose higher. As it faced the wind, it turned into the shadow of a large bowl that covered the entire camp. The red-robed old man looked up at the jade green and black light screen and could not help but be speechless. Even if 20 giant corpses attacked at the same time, it would still take them a long time to break through the defense, right? The chubby old man turned around and looked at Li Hong and the other martial kings. His voice was old and firm. Giving up is impossible. But who can guarantee that we can really persevere until the Realm Lord arrives? The reason I told them this is so that they can be mentally prepared. This cauldron is a remnant of a supreme treasure. Even though I don't have the power to control it, it's still tough enough. You guys should hurry up and recover your blood and chi. Don't give up. Don't give up on any chance. All the martial kings stood up and bowed their heads to the slightly hunched old man. Understood. In the courtyard, in the dim room, Su Li slowly opened her eyes, and there was a strong feeling in her eyes. When she looked up, her sight seemed to pass through the roof and see the shadow of the cyan furnace outside. A trace of the Milky Way's aura. Could it be the treasure of the Milky Way sect that was shattered? Confusion flashed in Su Li's eyes. The treasure of Tianhe sect actually fell into the Qimo circle. However, fortunately, Ma Ying took it out. Otherwise, my breakthrough would not be smooth. At this moment, she finally understood the true meaning of Sueyu tactics. Sueyu. What was needed to practice this method was not the nimbus, but a special energy called Jade Qi, which was completely different from the nimbus. If the entire cultivation world was built on spiritual aura, then she had every reason to imagine that there was a place under the starry sky that used jade aura as the foundation for cultivation. Sueyu tactics was a practice method of another world, and its power was beyond doubt. Su Li, who had seen through its essence, could directly reach the mastery in a short time as long as she had enough jade qi, not to mention breaking through the third hurdle. The practice method was no longer difficult for her. The Qimo circle is full of death. Black lotus stones are everywhere. There is no vitality, and there is no jade stone. Although the difficulty of practicing Sueyu tactics has been reduced, even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice. Fortunately. Su Li looked at the touch of green in the sky, and a smile finally appeared in her dark and deep eyes. It's just the right time. The camp was shrouded in dark green. No one noticed that the dark green in the sky above Li Qingling's courtyard was a little bit more than the other places. The news that 20 giant corpses attacked the city quickly spread throughout the camp. After the silence, panic and madness instantly infected every corner of the camp. Even the strong warriors couldn't help but feel desperate at this moment. They would die here, and they would die faster if they went out. They had lost the right to choose life and death. Boom. 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 A series of familiar deafening sounds sounded from the gate of the city. After a moment of silence in the noisy and chaotic mountain city, a large number of people rushed to the gate. Surprisingly, no one was wailing anymore. Even the martial artists didn't need to maintain order anymore. Go! Go and cheer for the martial kings. The powerful martial kings are still fighting for us. How can we bear to make trouble for the leaders? Go to the gate, but don't make a sound. If anyone dares to disturb the thinking of the martial kings, I will be the first to kill him. The martial kings were equivalent to those in nature's test, so they had sharp ears. When they heard the conversation in the city, they were excited. Inexplicably, a force was injected into their bodies, and they became energetic again. Let's go, brothers. The martial king in red stood up and stared at the 20 giant corpses that had appeared and were attacking the matrix. He was full of fighting intent. Disturb them. Even if we die, we have to wait for the arrival of the Realm Lord. Fight. Li Hong stepped forward, and his eyes flashed with killing intent. Once you are in danger, don't be obsessed with fighting. The young lord of our camp has already rushed to the Immortal Hall in advance. In 5 days, the Realm Lord will come. Just 5 days. Ding Gang grinned, and his eyes were fearless. Brothers, get your weapons and kill him. The next moment, 21 figures turned into shadows and shot out at the same time. Seeing this scene, hope appeared in the eyes of the residents in the city. Only the slightly fat elder was worried at this moment. Death was inevitable. What, 20 giant corpses? Li Qingling, who had just recovered a little spirit, suddenly stood up when she heard the news from Wu Rong. She immediately walked to Su Li's house and was about to knock on the door. But in the end, reason prevailed over impulse. She took a deep breath and sat down on the steps in front of Su Li's house. Her face was tense. She still remembered that before Su Li practiced in isolation, Su Li only told her the task. Don't wake me up until the last moment. At the last moment, Li Qingling looked up at the 2 light curtains that were still firm. Her eyes flashed with firmness. She took out a pile of materials from the universe ring and began to draw runes on the ground. This was the last rune matrix that the wandering warrior taught her. It was also a rare tactical matrix that was close to being lost. Rune Communication Matrix. The wandering warrior only gave her 1 set of materials, and the time was limited. But she must succeed. Only in this way could she ensure that she could wake Su Li up at the last moment. Every second counted. Li Qingling took a deep breath. I can do it. Master. Puff. The head of the giant corpse with purple skin suddenly turned back 360 degrees and opened its huge mouth. Ding Gang, who was about to attack in the rear, changed his face instantly. He barely twisted his body and stepped back a few inches. Ah ah ah. 1 arm was chewed off by the giant corpse. Ding Gang screamed, but his mind was still clear. He quickly fled into the forbidden matrix. The giant corpse opened its mouth and bit the black light curtain. After the light curtain trembled, it remained motionless. The giant corpse suddenly roared angrily and turned to rush to the nearest King Wu. Seeing the situation was not good, Li Hong could only give up helping the weaker King Wu and turn to deal with the giant corpse. Ding Gang's face was pale. He held the shoulder of the broken arm and jumped onto the city wall in pain. He transmitted the sound, be careful. This giant corpse is a little special. I see. Li Hong raised his saber to block the fist of the giant corpse. He stepped back a few steps and transmitted the sound to everyone. Other people should also pay attention. The skin of this giant corpse is purple and its head can rotate at will. Don't be bitten. As soon as he said that, 2 or 3 King Wu shouted. One of my ends here is also purple. Me too. Don't be impatient. The purple-skinned giant corpse is just a bit more agile. Pay attention to avoid it and continue to harass it. If you encounter any danger, escape into the light curtain. The red-clothed martial king transmitted the sound to calm everyone, but he sighed in his heart. If this goes on, they won't even last half a day. How can they talk about 6 days? The chubby old man walked to Ding Gang's side and sighed. He formed a seal with both hands and blue light balls appeared out of thin air and entered Ding Gang's bloody wound. Ding Gang immediately felt the pain ease a lot. He couldn't help but be astonished. He raised his head and couldn't help but say, "Spell? Is this a spell? Aren't you?" Does it matter which realm I am from now? The chubby old man tore open Ding Gang's clothes and bandaged his wound. He said, "Unfortunately, my skills are not good enough. If I could learn even a little bit of the method to use the Milky Way cauldron, you wouldn't be in such a passive position today." Ding Gang's eyes were filled with relief. "You are conscientious for Ma Camp, there is no need to investigate too much. Now I finally understand that your lifespan is really as rumored. You have lived for 3,000 years. The chubby old man smiled and said, "In Qingshui cultivation world, 3,000 years is nothing. It's because Qimo world has consumed too much vitality because of the death qi. Otherwise, you can all live much longer than me. I don't count on it." Ding Gang scratched his head with one hand and looked at his companions who were still fighting. He suddenly stood up and said, "As long as I can get through this disaster, I don't mind even if I die." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed out of the light curtain without waiting for the chubby old man to speak. He resolved the crisis for the weakest martial king and joined the battle. Chapter 649. You can search for Poisonous Wife on Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Puff. Blood sprayed, Li Hong held the long saber in his hand and stared at the sharp claws of the giant corpse in front of him. He slowly stepped back and covered the bloody hole in his abdomen. As blood flowed out, his aura gradually weakened. Looking around, there were no other martial kings fighting except for him. The pressure from the 20 giant corpses was so heavy that it was suffocating. "Saber King, come back. You will die if you continue. Your death will be worthless." The red-clothed martial king, who was leaning against the wall, was now covered in blood. There were also 2 long and deep scratches on his back. Blood flowed down his back, forming a pool of dark red on the ground. Li Hong gasped and frowned. He held the long saber tightly for a moment and finally let go. He turned around and jumped onto the wall. If he hadn't reconciled with Qing Ling, he wouldn't be so afraid of death. The chubby old man stopped the bleeding for Li Hong. His face was also very pale. He was only at the spirit-severing realm. It was really too difficult for him to treat the injuries of these passing Calamity Realm martial artists. "We sacrificed 5 martial kings, but we only managed to delay them for 1 day." Ding Gang glanced at the remaining 15 martial kings. All of them were seriously injured. They had reached their limit. "Chief." He turned to look at the chubby old man. His voice was very soft, but it sounded very heavy in the ears of the people. "Ask the level 7 martial artists for their opinion. We need reinforcements." The chubby old man's expression didn't change. He only sighed. Obviously, he already had this plan. He slowly came to the side of the wall and faced the martial artists who had gathered inside the wall. Looking at the pairs of eyes filled with various emotions, he took a deep breath. His clear voice began to reverberate above the camp. "Martial artists of the Ma camp, as you can see, we have reached a critical moment of life and death. Our camp has 11 martial kings and 10 external martial kings. We have guarded the gate for 7 days. Now, we have lost 5 of our martial kings and the remaining 16 are all seriously injured and unable to fight anymore. I, Mada, the chief of the Ma camp, beg you. Fight to the death for our homeland. Just to buy time, just to delay until the arrival of the Realm Lord, so that hundreds of thousands of people in the Ma camp can survive." The moment he said that, all the cultivators that filled the streets of the city gates were speechless. The chubby elder frowned. Just as he was about to say something, he saw a level 7 martial artist in the crowd suddenly raise his weapon and shout, "Leader! The peaceful days I've had all these years are all thanks to you. The camp is so dangerous, why did you only let us go to the battlefield now? Are you looking down on us?" "That's right." A large group of martial artists began to chime in, "Hurry up and open the city gates. We have more people and more strength. We can definitely help. Fight. Kill the giant corpse and avenge the martial kings. Kill, kill, kill." Leader, give the order. All of us are willing to fight. The chubby old man's eyes were already wet as he looked at the excited crowd below the city gate. This was the reason why he was willing to stay in Chimo Circle. In Qingshui Circle, it was impossible to have such a scene. All right. It's my fault. He laughed, and his laughter spread around the city wall. After a quarter of an hour, all the level 7 martial artists will fight. Remember that your task is to interfere with the giant corpse to continue destroying the Black Curtain. Only if you are alive can you continue to interfere. Don't lose your life prematurely. Yes. The shouts were earth-shattering. In the courtyard, Li Qingling wiped her cold sweat. Looking at the rune matrix on the ground that emitted a little brilliance, she showed a relieved smile. She succeeded. After experimenting and confirming that the rune matrix could be used, Li Qingling picked up the child matrix that had just been tested and immediately rushed out of the door. With her speed, she came to the city gate in less than a quarter of an hour and shouted, "Uncle Ma." Hearing the voice, Chief Mada signaled the guards to let Li Qingling go up the city wall. She immediately saw the horrible scene of 20 giant corpses outside the city. Her hand holding the child array trembled, and her eyes flashed with determination. She took a deep breath, forced herself to calm down, and quickly walked in front of Li Hong. Looking at Li Hong's blood-stained body, her eyes couldn't help but redden. Eldest brother. Li Hong smiled and hugged Li Qingling. Although the injury on his abdomen was affected, he just grinned and continued to smile. Eldest brother is fine. It's dangerous here. You go down first. Seeing this scene, other martial kings couldn't help but think of the people they cared about in their hearts, and their faces were a little soft. They risked their lives in the front for their loved ones. Therefore, even if everyone saw that Li Qingling was a level 7 martial artist and reached the standard of going out of the city to fight, no one said that Li Hong had paid enough. No, I want to stay here. Li Qingling's eyes were full of stubbornness. She held the child matrix tightly in her hand. If the city gate is really lost, it's the same wherever I am in Maing. Li Hong sighed. He knew that his sister's temperament was as stubborn as his since he was a child. No one could change her decision. In this case, you will replace me and be responsible for passing the orders to Uncle Ma. I can concentrate on healing. Li Qingling's eyes suddenly brightened, and she nodded heavily. Only here could she pass the orders to Su Li in the first time. A quarter of an hour later, thousands of level 7 martial artists gathered in Maing rushed out of the city gate. The roar of the giant corpse was earth-shattering. In the blink of an eye, blood flowed like a river outside the city. But even so, the remaining level 7 martial artists still didn't flinch. They roared and rushed up again. It was like hitting a stone with an egg. They knew that it was like hitting a stone with an egg, but they also knew that they had no way back. If they took one step back, they would be desperate and killed. Li Qingling looked at the outside of the city in a daze. Her eyes seemed to be dyed with blood. She didn't expect that she would see such a tragic scene when she just went to the city gate. Was the situation so serious that they needed to exchange lives for survival? She held the rune child matrix so tightly that it turned white. It was not the last moment. Mada sighed and closed his eyes. Only half of the half-month has passed. Why can't we go faster at this time? Go faster. Ma Jintian roared, but he found that his throat was hoarse. His hands were more like 2 bones than hands. He became a bloodless bag of bones. The poisonous insect maniac had sucked up all his flesh and blood. He couldn't get any more power. Cough, cough, cough. Ma Jintian was furious. When he was roaring, his legs were broken directly. He lay on the ground and coughed up dry blood clots. Okay, young man. Bing Feng released a frost cage and wrapped Ma Jintian in it. He smiled to comfort him. You have worked hard enough. You have saved at least 2 days by squeezing yourself like this. Let me handle the rest. After one more day, you can go home. Bing Feng lifted the cage, and the blue light in his eyes soared. Then he went away instantly. 4 hours later, only a little more than 100 martial artists came back from the 1,000 martial artists who rushed out. Most of them were disabled. The smell of blood was extremely strong in the city from the crack of the city gate. More than 900 people died in exchange for 4 hours. Mada's eyes twitched. His heart was bleeding. But as a leader, he must keep calm. Qingling, the warriors of the 6th level can't go out of the city. Even if they try their best, they can't stop the giant corpses. There will no longer be any martial artists who can do anything for this city. Pass down my orders. Have everyone prepare. Once the city is breached. Mada paused for a moment before lowering his voice. Let's try to escape as much as we can. Yes. Li Qingling's eyes were wet. She turned around and immediately gave the order. She still didn't mention the existence of Su Li. She was very clear that if there was no miracle after she gave hope, her strong heart would collapse instantly. Moreover, she didn't have much confidence in Su Li in the face of the terrifying 20 giant corpses. After all, it was just a giant corpse that Su Li sent flying at that time. Under Li Qingling's order, the residents in front of the city gate all bowed to the old man on the city gate and then left. In the blink of an eye, there was no one inside the city wall. Even some guards had left. Only a few lonely people stayed here. Qingling, you should leave too. Leave with your big brother. Mada suddenly said. Li Qingling glanced at Li Hong who was still healing, but shook her head with a smile. I want to stay here until the last moment. Mada shook his head with a bitter smile and stopped persuading her. There was no sound of fighting. On the lonely city wall, there was only the monotonous bombardment of the giant corpses. Mada just looked at it calmly. 4 hours later, the black light screen finally shattered and disappeared from the sky above the city. 20 giant corpses roared and ran wildly. They hit the turquoise light curtain and were blocked again. 4 hours. The power of the inhibition is more powerful than I thought. Mada calculated the time in his mind. This nameless forbidden pattern had bought them at least 2 days. How long could the Milky Way cauldron last? In the dull and suffocating atmosphere, time passed bit by bit. Every time the turquoise light curtain shook, it affected people's hearts. Behind them, the turquoise light curtain dropped a dense beam of light over the courtyard, which made the color of the turquoise light by more than 1 level. Only 16 hours later, crack. The harsh breaking sound rang in the ears of everyone above the city wall, but it also seemed to break Mada's heart. Mada's face was pale. Looking at the broken hole on the turquoise light curtain, he smiled bitterly and unwillingly. It can't even hold for 1 day. Is the Milky Way cauldron really a treasure? Li Qingling looked at the crack and bit her lips. Was it the last moment now? I'll lead them away. By time. Ding Gang suddenly stood up and left the turquoise light curtain. His voice was full of determination. My life is not more noble than anything. If I die. Li Hong, discipline my brother for me. As expected, after Ding Gang appeared, all the giant corpses diverted their attention and rushed to him. Come on, you idiots. Let's have some fun. Ding Gang laughed wildly. He narrowly dodged several sharp claws and was about to lead all the giant corpses away. However, at this moment, a strange cry came from the black fog. All the giant corpses paused and then turned to attack the turquoise light curtain. Ding Gang was instantly exasperated. Just as he was about to leave, swoosh. Lightning flashed in the black fog, and a bright light swept past Ding Gang's neck. Ding Gang's expression froze for a moment, and then, his head was sent flying into the sky by the blood and fell into the open mouth of one of the giant corpses. Chapter 650. You can search for Poisonous Wife on Baidu to find the latest chapter. Ding Gang. The red-clothed martial king roared as he gathered his last bit of strength and rushed towards the giant corpse that had eaten Ding Gang. Li Hong's eyes turned sharp as he raised his saber and flew out of the city wall, slashing at the giant corpse closest to the red-clothed martial king. Big brother. In her anxiety, Li Qingling grabbed the city wall and was about to jump down, but Ma De firmly held onto her arm. Captain. I can still hold on. The martial kings were infected as they fearlessly jumped out of the city wall to stop the giant corpse from destroying the city wall. However, in front of the tireless giant corpse, they were no longer as difficult to deal with as before. In a short period of time, several people were heavily injured again. Bastard, spit it out for me. The red-clothed martial king's palm struck the back of the giant corpse's neck, but it was like a fist hitting cotton. It caved in and did not cause any damage. Come back. Li Hong struggled to maintain his position under the three giant corpses as he shouted, You still have family. Your home is not in mine. Leave. The red-clothed martial king's body suddenly trembled as he turned around. He saw a sharp claw piercing through the gap behind Li Hong and stabbing towards his heart. Quickly dodge. Saber King. Big brother, quickly dodge. Li Qingling shouted at the top of her lungs. Li Hong sensed something and suddenly turned his head. The sharp claw was rapidly enlarging in front of him. At this distance, he no longer had any room to turn around. Big brother. Li Qingling screamed and subconsciously wanted to crush the runic formation. At this moment, a sigh came from the sky. All the giant corpses stopped moving at this moment as bits of frost fell down along with the black mist. This is, Li Qingling's eyes widened as she looked at the sky. Her memories returned to her childhood. You wait, quickly retreat. A familiar voice entered his ears and Li Hong recovered from his shock. He immediately turned around and brought the red-clothed martial king, who was still in a daze, back into the broken green barrier. Someone from the divine hall has come. The voice came from the sky. It's definitely the legendary martial emperor. The martial king standing on the city wall was stunned for a moment before he roared with joy. It was also this roar that caused all the martial kings to come back to their senses and jump back onto the city wall. Whoosh! Bing Feng landed on the city wall with the cage in his hand. He then gently put the cage down. A hint of exhaustion flashed through his eyes, but it quickly disappeared. That scared the hell out of me. I almost missed it. He was scared and waved his hand to dissolve the ice prison. Ma Jintian, who was too thin to be human, appeared in front of everyone. Jintian. Mada's expression changed drastically. He ran over to pick up his son, only to find that his son was only skin and bones. He was terrifyingly weak. He's fine. He'll recover after taking some supplements. You really have a good son. If it weren't for him rushing over, I wouldn't have been able to get there in time. When Mada heard this, he felt both heartache and gratified. He stood up, cupped his fists, and said, You must be the Ice Emperor, Lord Iceberg, right? What Ice Empress? She's just making a living in the Divine Hall. Bing Feng waved his hand, turned around and looked at the 20 giant corpses that he had frozen outside the door. With a wave of his hand, the 20 giant corpses turned into ice powder and fell to the ground. Li Hong stared blankly at the drifting snowflakes outside the city. Then, he took a deep breath and pursed his lips. The danger of exterminating the camp vanished the instant the martial emperor arrived. So powerful. Was that the next realm he wanted to break through? He also wanted to break through as soon as possible. Bing Feng clapped his hands, looked relaxed, and said, This number and scale are much stronger than Li Ying's. You guys actually managed to hold on for 8 days. You're really not simple. What a pity. The red-clothed martial king looked at the drifting light blue snowflakes with a lonely look in his eyes. Ding Gang was too impulsive. After all, Mado was a man who had seen great storms and waves. He quickly regained his composure, cupped his fists, and said, Thank you, Lord Iceberg, for coming here to deal with the enemy. If Lord Iceberg is not in a hurry to go back, you must let me entertain you. Hearing this, Bing Feng raised his eyebrows. Go back. I didn't say that the problem you encountered was solved. Ma De was startled. He turned around and walked to the edge of the city wall. His face became serious again. Bing Feng walked to his side and pointed at the dark sky. You can see that the black fog hasn't dissipated. Do you think that the corpse spirit will let it go? If the corpse spirit was so easy to deal with, the realm lord wouldn't have been alarmed. Speaking of this, Bing Feng frowned and lowered his voice. It's coming. The moment his voice fell, a strange cry unique to the corpse spirit came from the black fog and approached quickly in a few breaths. Bing Feng's eyes turned cold. He stretched out his right hand and said softly, appear. In an instant, a huge ice flower appeared in his hand and rotated to the size of the city wall. Just a few breaths after the ice flower was formed, the huge white shadow fiercely hit the ice flower. At that moment, the space where the two collided froze for a moment, and then, boom. The deafening shock wave spread to both sides, forming ripples that shattered the rest of the green light curtain in the blink of an eye. Under everyone's shocked gazes, countless fragments of the light curtain rolled back and disappeared. Li Qingling gave a muffled groan and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Seeing this, Li Hong hurriedly stood in front of her and looked at the scene outside the city in shock. Two deep, pitch-black cracks appeared on the ground where the two collided. They were like natural rifts, bottomless. Was this caused by a human? How could the battle between martial emperors be so horrible? Bing Feng withdrew his hand. His face turned pale for a moment and then returned to normal. However, he frowned and stared at the pure white giant corpse outside the ice flower. Its body was snow white, which was completely different from the ordinary giant corpses. It seemed to have the bloodline of Gao Gung, showing its nobility everywhere. Its aura also contained a strong pressure, which was no less than that of a martial emperor. At the corner of its mouth, an ordinary corpse revealed its eyes and stared at the city wall with hatred. Seeing this thing, Bing Feng sighed inwardly. This beast actually remembered him. Last time, it luckily escaped. It was much stronger and smarter than before. At this time, the realm lord went to Qingshui Circle and couldn't be contacted. Other martial emperors were in charge of the Baiqing camp, and they couldn't come here in a few days. He might not be able to protect Ma Ying alone. It's really difficult. Bing Feng murmured to himself and turned to look at Ma De, who showed a rare look of horror. He sighed and said, this corpse spirit did not play seriously before. Otherwise, the Ma camp could not even hold on for a day. Lord Bing Feng, what should we do now? Facing an enemy comparable to a martial emperor, Ma De was helpless and could only ask for Bing Feng's help. Bing Feng frowned and operated the ice flower to resist the white giant corpse's probing. After thinking for a moment, he asked, do you have any powerful rune matrices? If I fight with it, the aftermath alone can kill or injure more than half of the Ma camp. Ma De shook his head and smiled bitterly, the green light curtain is the last means. The remaining ones are only some rune matrices of the 7th level, which are useless. Bing Feng felt a headache. He looked back at the dark sky and could not find any green light. How could it be consumed so completely? In the courtyard, Wu Rong looked up and saw the last green light beam disappear into Su Li's room. She was stunned. It was not that the leader's protective means were weak, but most of the green light beam was eaten by Su Li. In this case, we have to use extreme means. Bing Feng sighed and felt a little regretful. If he had known this, he would not have come with Ma Jintian. Maybe, he would have lost his life. Lord Bing Feng, Li Qingling walked over and stared at Bing Feng's face, which had not changed much after 50 years. I am Li Ying's. Oh, it's you? Bing Feng interrupted Li Qingling. He still remembered Li Qingling. He smiled and squinted his eyes. Why can I meet you every time the zombie appears? You are so lucky. Li Qingling was surprised to see that he was still in the mood to joke. However, after hearing his words, her uneasy heart calmed down a lot. Bing Feng turned his head around, looking at Ma De with a serious expression. His smile disappeared, and Mada's spirit was lifted. Leader Ma, I'm going to open the field. Bing Feng's first transmitted sound made Mada's face change. Field. Lord Bing Feng, you are from Qingshui Circle, so you know that the field of the martial emperor in our Qimo Circle is not good. It can only hold for 2 hours at most. Bing Feng looked serious. Make good use of the 2 hours. Take all the people in the city to escape. Even if ordinary people run for 2 hours, it is enough for them to run to a place where the aftermath can't reach. At that time, I can fight freely. Do you understand? Mada looked confused and couldn't help retorting, but after you open the field for 2 hours, you still, no buts. Bing Feng interrupted Mada and said with a serious face, go and arrange it. Mada was full of grief and indignation. He looked at Bing Feng for a long time, and then went down the city wall to pass the order. That's more like it. Bing Feng smiled and glanced at the martial kings on the city wall, saying, you go too, in case you are hurt and die in vain. The martial king in red saluted Bing Feng and turned to chase Mada. He wanted to know what Bing Feng and Mada had talked about. I won't go. Li Qingling looked at the ice peak, her hand holding the rune formation. Her voice was soft but firm, I won't let you die. She had no confidence now, or, there was only one obsession left. No matter what the result was, she had to try. Silly girl, what nonsense are you talking about? Bing Feng laughed and stood on the edge of the city wall, looking at the giant white corpse behind the ice flowers. I am so strong. How can I die? Since you don't want to go, just watch how I trample on this white-haired monster. As soon as he finished speaking, Bing Feng stopped smiling and opened his hands. He shouted in a deep voice, Snow region, come to me. Crash! A heavy snowstorm came suddenly and instantly wrapped Bing Feng's body. He turned into snowflakes and disappeared on the city wall, along with the giant white corpse behind the ice flowers. It seemed that the snowstorm had locked up the small area in front of them. No fluctuations of fighting could come out from it. In the falling snowflakes, Li Hong stood on the wall. He could still see the fight in the so-called snow region through the reflection of the nothingness. He slightly opened his mouth in astonishment. Miracle? The latest chapter of Poisonous Wife, the full text of Poisonous Wife, the download of Poisonous Wife, the Poisonous Wife. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collect below to record this time. Chapter 651. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. You can search for the latest chapter. It's not a miracle. Mada, who had returned to the city wall, walked over slowly. The domain consumes a lot of energy and has many disadvantages. It's not the best way for him to fight. But, he has to do this for the residents in the camp. We have to evacuate the residents as far away as possible in order to make up for his sacrifice. Sacrifice? Li Qingling's pupils shrank. Milord Bing Feng will die. I don't know. Mada let out a sigh and leaned against the city wall. His eyes were filled with worry. I only know that if Bing Feng uses his realm domain for more than 2 hours, he will be exhausted and unable to fight anymore. At that time, even a child can easily kill him. I didn't expect that. Li Hong stared at the back of the figure in the snow region and clenched his teeth. Even the martial lord was not strong enough. 50 years ago, he was only a warrior at the 7th level and could not change the situation. But this time, as a martial lord, he still felt powerless. In the snow region, Bing Feng's face was as pale as the surrounding snow. He looked around helplessly at the vast white domain. Tut, he really hides. Bing Feng sat down helplessly and couldn't help but whisper, it's really killing me. Why can't the domain we developed be like those practitioners in Qingshui Circle, who can control everything in a circle? I can't even sense a trace of the zombie. It's so uncomfortable. He looked back at the city wall and saw Mada, Li Qingling, and Li Hong were still guarding on the city wall. He couldn't help but smile and said, hurry up. Mada, you have to take care of your son. If you die here, what about your son? And you brother and sister, you finally survived the catastrophe last time. Why do you want to die this time? I have entrusted Jin Tian to someone reliable. Milord Bing Feng, focus on the battle and don't worry about me. At least I am here. If you fail, it will only chase me instead of the troops in the rear. Li Hong and Li Qingling looked at each other and smiled. Then they raised their heads with obsession in their eyes and said calmly, I can also buy time. This time, I won't give up on anyone. Fool. Bing Feng laughed and scolded. How could their Qimo circle produce such idiots? Even Ma Da, a man of Qingshui circle who was known for his selfishness, was influenced by them. In the blink of an eye, more than an hour had passed, and the snowy domain had visibly thinned. Bing Feng sat cross-legged on the ground like a statue, but he still did not give up looking for the corpse spirit. If he could discover it, even if he had to bury the snow domain and the corpse spirits with him, it would still be worth it. At this moment, another person ascended the city wall. It was the red-clothed Martial King who had returned. When he saw the situation on the city wall, his heart trembled. He respectfully bowed to Bing Feng, who was in the snowy region. Lord Bing Feng, the ordinary residents in the city have all evacuated from the camp and moved to the rear. The ordinary warriors are also quite a distance away from the city wall. All right. Bing Feng abruptly stood up and waved his hand. The wind and snow surged up and melted the snow domain instantly. Heavy snow poured down and covered the dark red color of the city wall, turning it into pure white. Bing Feng was gasping for breath, standing in the middle of the snowfield. All of a sudden, something strange happened. Not far behind Bing Feng, a giant white claw suddenly pierced out of the snowfield and was about to pierce through Bing Feng's back at lightning speed. The four people on the city wall were so shocked that they had no time to warn Bing Feng. Alas, with a sigh, the giant white claw froze in the air again. Frost climbed up the giant claw and soon, the giant white corpse hiding in the snow was completely frozen. At this moment, Bing Feng turned around. His ruddy face was still wearing a smile, and he said sarcastically, "This trick again? It's exactly the same as 50 years ago. Do you think I will fall for the same trick twice? Corpse spirit, it seems that you are not very smart." Bang! The corpse spirit's angry cry came from the giant corpse. Cracks appeared on the giant white corpse. Bing Feng's face changed slightly and he immediately retreated. In the next moment, the ice on the frozen corpse shattered, turning into countless ice blades that shot out in all directions. Li Hong and the red-clothed Martial King were already prepared. They brought Li Qingling and Ma Da with them as they quickly dodged the attacks. Swish! 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 The ice blades pierced through the city wall, and the solid wall was riddled with holes in the blink of an eye. The city wall that had stood for thousands of years suddenly collapsed and turned into ruins, revealing large pieces of black lotus stone. Bang! The corpse spirit's voice turned calm. The huge, pure white corpse reared its head back and roared. Then, it strode towards the icy peak. With the advantage of its huge body and mass, it was no slower than a regular martial emperor. Just in time. Bing Feng waved his hand, and a long spear shining with light blue cold air appeared out of thin air. He grabbed the spear handle and thrust it at the giant corpse's face. Boom! 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 Two figures, one big and one small, kept flashing, creating deafening sounds. The terrifying collision left one big pit after another on the ground. The two suddenly fell into a fierce battle. Li Qingling clenched her fists and watched the fierce battle nervously. However, her cultivation was too low to see the specific situation of the battle. She could only ask Li Hong, "How is Lord Bing Feng? How is the battle going?" Li Hong's face was tense. He frowned as he saw more and more red lines on Bing Feng's face. In his memory, Bing Feng always had a cold and pale face. He had never seen his face so red. Li Qingling's heart sank. Even Bing Feng, who had killed 20 giant corpses with a wave of his hand, was not a match for the corpse spirit. The high-intensity fight lasted for several hours, until Bing Feng's face turned as red as blood. The ice spear in his hand was a beat slower, and the giant white corpse, who was still in its peak state, immediately seized the opportunity and clawed at his chest. Bing Feng tried his best to retreat, but he could not avoid it completely. Eventually, the giant white corpse scratched his chest, leaving 3 bloody wounds. Bing Feng stomped on the ground and retreated, landing on the rubble of the city wall. He spat out a long breath of turbid air. His gaze was cold as he spoke in a low voice, "Not bad. After 50 years, you actually managed to injure me. If you have more time to grow, wouldn't that mean that even the Realm Lord wouldn't be able to do anything to you? Today, you will die." Bang! Bang! The corpse spirit shouted and seemed to be laughing. It did not give Bing Feng any chance to breathe and commanded the giant white corpse to rush at the city wall. Bing Feng became serious. He was about to fly away, but his feet suddenly became soft and he failed to fly. Oh, no! Bing Feng's face changed slightly. Between life and death, he could not care about anything else. He directly rolled into the ruins and avoided the giant corpse's trampling. Bang! Bang! The corpse spirit could not see Bing Feng. He was angry and commanded the giant corpse to destroy the ruins. Hiding in the ruins, Bing Feng did not dare to move. He took out the carrier rune given by the Realm Master, but found that the light was still dim. Blazing Heaven had not come back yet. It had been a few days. Was he really going to stay in Qingshui Circle for a month? By then, it would be too late. Bing Feng's face darkened. He could not stay in the ruins for too long. Otherwise, when the corpse spirit reacted, Mada and others would be in danger. He took a deep breath, waved his hand to break the ruins covering his head, and flew into the sky. This time, there were no accidents. Seeing him, the corpse spirit was attracted again and commanded the giant corpse to chase him. Before the corpse spirit completely calmed down, Bing Feng sent the message to the carrier rune again and again, hoping that it would light up. But when the corpse spirit turned to look at Li Qingling and others in the distance, the carrier rune was still dim and had no response. Run! Bing Feng's pupils shrank. He immediately lowered his body to attract the corpse spirit's attention. But at this time, bang! The undead spirit's strange cry was filled with pride. The giant white corpse's head suddenly turned 360 degrees backward and opened its bloody mouth towards the ice peak. The dense and gloomy teeth pierced his eyes, and he couldn't even see the undead spirit that was hiding in them. At this moment, he had never felt that death was so close to him. Bing Feng! Danger! Li Hong and others shouted. Li Qingling's heart suddenly shrank. She closed her eyes and crushed the child formation in her hand. She did not know if she could make it in time. But this was the last moment. The last moment. Boom! The courtyard exploded in Wu Rong's horror. It's done. Following the low yet strangely pleasant voice, the world suddenly fell silent. The giant white corpse's bloody mouth didn't come down. Bing Feng stared blankly at the woman in black who suddenly appeared in front of him. His breath stopped for a moment, and his brain finally recovered from the crisis. He began to gasp as if he had been fished out of the water. Just after a few breaths, he suddenly found that the surrounding environment suddenly changed. He looked at Li Hong, who was also stunned, and scratched his head blankly. How did he come down from the sky? She came. She really came. Li Qingling was so excited that she cried tears of joy. As expected, Su Li was not weaker than Bing Feng. As soon as she appeared, she saved Bing Feng. Great! Is that Su Li? Li Hong's pupils shrank when he saw the beautiful figure standing in front of the giant white corpse. He turned to Li Qingling and was about to ask. Bing Feng, who was still sitting on the ground, suddenly trembled when he heard the name. Li Hong felt dizzy, and then he was completely blocked by Bing Feng, who looked excited. What did you say her name was? Su Li. Why, before Li Hong finished his words, he heard Ma De kneeling on the ground. He blankly stared at the figure in the air and muttered to himself, "It's really Su Li." Li Hong finally realized that the name was not ordinary. But Su Li was his sister's subordinate. How could it be? He looked at Li Qingling. Li Qingling shook her head and stared at the two people who were still confronting each other in the air. She said softly, "I only know that she is very strong. When my teammates and I explored the dead zone, we found her and rescued her back to the small camp. Later, the small camp encountered the giant white corpse. When she was seriously injured, she punched the giant white corpse away. Because of her, we could successfully escape from the small camp. Otherwise, we would have been killed by the giant white corpse." Hearing this, Li Hong finally understood why Su Li didn't show any respect to him when she first met him. It was ridiculous to think of it now. It should be him who showed respect to her. Chapter 652. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. In the air, Su Li held the upper jaw of the giant corpse with one hand and fixed her eyes on the corpse monster hiding in the gap of its teeth. "Is it you, little thing, who stirred up a storm in the city?" Su Li smiled and waved her hand. The corpse monster was horrified to find that it could not help floating to the woman in front of it. "Ah! Ah!" It screamed in panic, and the giant white corpse shrank instantly. The giant mouth left Su Li's palm and closed again to protect the corpse monster. The exasperated scream echoed in the black fog. "Damn it! Damn it!" It clearly sensed that the terrible Numa of this world was gone, so it seized the opportunity to attack. How could there be another terrible human? After the giant white corpse shrank, it became faster and disappeared in the black fog with a flash of white light. Li Hong and others changed their expressions slightly. Su Li was in the light, while the corpse monster was in the dark. The situation was not good. Bing Feng was still in a daze, and he looked a little confused. He couldn't understand why this lady appeared here. It was so strange. Su Li narrowed her eyes and looked at the rolling black fog. She chuckled, "Want to escape? I'm not Chi Tian." Buzz! The next moment, with a gray light that was invisible to the naked eye, her divine awareness covered the area with a radius of thousands of miles. The Numa of the corpse monster was as dazzling as a lighthouse in the dark. "I found you here," Su Li said softly. She turned over her hands unhurriedly, and pieces of restriction runes fell like black snowflakes. Li Hong finally understood the origin of the unknown shelter. It turned out that Su Li had already taken action. "Look, eldest brother. The fog is gone." Li Qingling's face was red. She was the most excited one. She didn't expect that Su Li was so strong. She was so strong. After a short confrontation with her, the corpse monster chose to retreat into the black fog. Even Lord Bing Feng couldn't do that. Li Hong looked up and saw that the falling, black snowflakes could absorb the black fog as nourishment, so that the flickering black boundary could be formed faster. Without the cover of the fog, the corpse spirit screamed in fear when the giant white corpse was revealed. By the time he felt that something was wrong, it was already too late. He couldn't understand why the more terrifying fiery red human couldn't find him, and why this feminine and terrifying human in front of him couldn't find him. Covered by the black boundary, Su Li's eyes were instantly dyed with darkness, which was as bright as obsidian. The evil ghost integrated into her body, and she instinctively showed greed and hunger. It turns out that the creatures of the dead can be eaten. "I'm really hungry." "You've come at the right time." Before she finished her words, Su Li's figure had disappeared. When she appeared again, she grabbed the head of the giant white corpse with both hands, threw it to the ground and smashed it hard. Boom! With the black barrier as the center, countless cracks appeared on the ground, and it only stopped in front of the four stunned people. Li Hong gulped and stared at the black barrier. Although he couldn't see clearly, a human could actually throw a giant corpse. Was he seeing things? Right at this moment, Bing Feng suddenly felt a warm sensation on his chest. His communication talisman lit up, and Qi Tian's slightly anxious voice came from it. Bing Feng, why are you looking for me? Are you okay? Bing Feng came to his senses, took a deep breath, and said quickly, Realm Lord, you're finally back. Maing was attacked by the ghoul, and the monster became stronger. I was almost killed by it. I'm on my way. Bing Feng scratched his head and sat down cross-legged. Looking at the giant white corpse being ravaged in the black boundary in the distance, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Realm Lord, Grand Elder Su has taken action. You'd better continue to help her guard and I sect. Who are you talking about? Grand Elder Su. Qi Tian's voice suddenly raised a pitch. Su Li is in Qimo Circle. Bing Feng was embarrassed. It's hard to believe, but I really saw her. Ha 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 ha. I see. Grand Elder Su, ha 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 ha. Qi Tian's hearty laughter came from the carrier talisman, and then the light dimmed down quickly. Bing Feng patted his head and was speechless. I just said it casually, and you really went to Ni sect again. Bing Feng didn't cover up his words. Li Hong and Li Qingling finally understood when they heard it. Li Hong's eyes flashed, and he asked, Lord Bing Feng, is Grand Elder Su also the Lord of a circle? Is she the Lord of Qingshui Circle? I'm not sure. I only know that Realm Lord and Grand Elder Su are cooperating. Bing Feng smiled and pointed to the black boundary. Maybe we will have two protectors of Realm Lord in the future. Li Qingling blushed and looked at the black boundary with admiration. Realm Lord. She actually had intimate contact with such an existence. Such an honor was so shocking that the battlefield in front of her was no longer the focus of her attention. Mada still knelt on the ground, quietly listening to the conversation of the three. Hearing this, he smiled. Although the guilt in his heart didn't fade away, he felt the taste of redemption. So it turned out that the chess piece that suffered the most miserably back then, the one whose soul had been scattered, had not perished but had been reborn and had grown to the level of the blazing heaven realm lord. You are really thick-skinned. Let me exercise my muscles and bones. It's so cool. Su Li smiled brightly. In terms of physical body, the body you drive is no worse than those so-called demons. Unfortunately, you are a great tonic. I'm sorry. Ah. Ah. The giant corpse begged for mercy. The human in front of her. No. She was not a human at all, but a monster in human skin. She actually wanted to eat it. Su Li turned a deaf ear to it and waved her hand to reduce the visibility of the black boundary. Then her fingers became dark and sharp like the giant corpse. I don't have the divine thunder with me, and I don't have a good sword. I can only use a primitive method to find you. Su Li licked her lips, and her pure black eyes suddenly lit up. Ah! The brief and urgent scream of the corpse broke through the sky and then stopped abruptly. Brother Bing Feng, what happened inside? Li Qingling asked nervously. Bing Feng curled his lips and rolled his eyes. How do I know? That was the black boundary set by Grand Elder Su. How could he see through it? However, it was obviously the scream of the corpse. Grand Elder Su must be fine. Before Bing Feng finished his words, Li Hong suddenly said, the boundary disappeared. Su Li wiped her lips and turned to look at Li Qingling and Li Hong who were approaching. She spread out her hands full of cyan blood and smiled, it's over. Bing Feng saw the giant white corpse with its belly cut open, but didn't see the corpse spirit. He couldn't help but ask, Grand Elder Su, the corpse spirit. Su Li turned her eyes and saw Bing Feng. She asked strangely, are you Bing Feng of Blazing Sky? It's my honor to know you, Grand Elder Su. Su Li smiled slightly and said calmly, the body of the corpse spirit is very fragile. I couldn't stop it, and the corpse is gone. Oh, I see. Bing Feng nodded suddenly. Looking at Su Li's bloody hands, he couldn't help but feel strange. How could the Grand Elder's means be more barbaric than theirs? didn't the realm lord say that Qingshui Circle was a group of elegant practitioners? Huh? You are. Mada. Su Li's eyes fell on Mada. She had a good memory and recognized him at a glance. It turns out that you are in Chimo Circle. No wonder I entrusted Tainyik Attic to find your trace, but I only got the result that you and Ma Jintian disappeared together. Is Ma Jintian also here? Holy girl, you are right. It makes me feel ashamed that you still remember me. Mada smiled bitterly. Ma Jintian went to the immortal hall to ask for help. His body is too weak to bear the anger of the holy girl. If the holy girl wants to punish him for his past crimes, just let me be punished alone. Li Hong and Li Qingling were at a loss when they heard their conversation. Uncle Ma was from Qingshui Circle and had a bad relationship with the Grand Elder Su. Tut, old Ma, you have a strong background. You even have a relationship with the Grand Elder Su. Is it because, Bing Feng's eyes flickered, but he didn't say anything. Su Li shook off the blood on her hands and said softly, old guy, your information is outdated. Go back and have a look when you have time. If you really want to forgive yourself, you should obey the command of the Lord of Chimo Circle. Bing Feng understood the meaning and his face changed slightly. Su Li didn't say much. She walked past Mada and patted him on the shoulder. Then she turned away. Bing Feng stretched himself and held Mada, who was still in a daze, with one hand. What are you doing? Hurry up and call all your people back. And your baby son, since you have a grudge with the Grand Elder Su, don't count on him. Fortunately, I have a piece of blood essence here. In the courtyard, Su Li opened the door of the courtyard. Wu Rong and others immediately surrounded her. How is it? Why did you come back so soon? It's only less than 2 hours. Su Li pointed to the quiet outside and said with a smile, it's over. You can go and help. I'm going to have a rest. Then she turned to enter the main room and closed the door. Wu Rong and others looked at each other and didn't know why. It's over. What do you mean? I don't understand. Let's go out and have a look. Wu Rong was excited and rushed out of the courtyard. Dai Hechuan and Li Dazhuang looked at each other and immediately followed her. The courtyard was quiet again. In the room, Su Li sat cross-legged on the ground. With a muffled groan, she opened her mouth and spat out a piece of black blood. The remaining black liquid flowed down the corner of her mouth and was wiped clean by her. I ate it too fast, but, Su Li closed her eyes and sensed for a while. The evil ghost's eyes opened instantly. If you looked carefully, the pupils were somewhat similar to those of the corpse essence, and its pneuma had recovered to its peak. Compared with the time when she was in the Ziyin house, it was slightly stronger. The corpse essence had been absorbed in such a short time. In other words, it didn't need time to absorb at all, as if it was a part of the evil ghost itself. What exactly is a corpse essence? Are there other corpse essences in the Chimo Circle? Su Li licked her lips and looked up at the outside. The Chimo Circle was really full of treasures. Chapter 653. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. While no one came to disturb her, Su Li calmed down. After solving the crisis of the zombie essence, she finally had time to carefully sort out her current cultivation state. First of all, she successfully broke through the third hurdle of Sueyu tactics. Thanks to the help of the zombie essence, she broke the barrier set by Mada. At that moment, she absorbed enough jade energy and finally completed the breakthrough. The changes after the breakthrough also appeared in her heart at this moment. The third hurdle of Sueyu tactics was, Jade Transformation Realm. At this realm, Su Li finally officially mastered Sueyu tactics, and its horrible side finally surfaced. Only by practicing to this realm, Su Li finally understood why this method could stand out from many mental methods in ancient times and become the most important method of Kueyu Palace. As soon as she broke through, Su Li immediately sensed that her strength, speed, and responsiveness were greatly improved. Compared with before the breakthrough, they were at least 3 times better. It should be known that her strength was no less than that of the demon clan in the same realm, but it was far from the level beyond. However, Sueyu tactics helped her to accomplish this feat, and it was precisely because of this that she was able to crush the zombies in the battle. This fundamental level of improvement was completely out of her expectations. Because Black Lotus said a long time ago that her physical body had reached the limit of the human clan, blood sea-like tide. Further up was the realm of physical sanctification that only immortals could reach. Even among immortals, only a few people could reach it. Su Li estimated that she was between the two at most. She surpassed blood sea-like tide, but she didn't reach physical sanctification. However, the physical limit was indeed broken by Sueyu tactics, and she didn't feel any discomfort. Moreover, she was the body of evil ghost. After absorbing the zombie essence, the evil ghost became different from before. She didn't have time to confirm whether there were other changes, but she was sure that she had become stronger now. The pneuma of the divine thunder of the 5 elements is still far away. It seems that I can only ask Qi Tian for help. But since Qi Tian is in Qingshui Circle, I can still improve during this time. Su Li opened her eyes, and her eyes flickered. She had always been cautious. She would only choose to gamble in a dangerous situation where there was no other way. It was not the time to fight with Baimo. She had to take advantage of the convenience in Qimo Circle to improve as much as possible in a short time. After the disaster, the Ma camp entered the reconstruction phase. Although the martial artists suffered heavy casualties, under Mada's arrangements, the camp was quickly stabilized and returned to the right track. Uncle Ma, actually, other than the warriors, we didn't lose much in other areas. Only the city gate needs to be rebuilt. Li Hong's face was a little pale. His injuries had not healed, but it did not affect his normal paperwork. As for the martial artists, we can only rely on time to recover. Mada nodded and turned to look at Bing Feng, who was sitting on the side, and asked, "Sir, do you have anything else to add?" "I didn't." Bing Feng leaned against the soft chair and said leisurely, "There's a great god in your camp now. Why don't you ask her what she needs? You know, she's your savior." "Of course," Bing Feng stood up and said seriously, "he is also my benefactor. Who can tell me where Grand Elder Su lives? I will visit him personally to thank him." Master Bing Feng is right. Mada stood up with a sincere expression. "I'll go with you." After a while, they appeared in front of the courtyard. Bing Feng saw the collapsed house on the side of the courtyard and the fragments of the rune matrix on the ground. He couldn't help but recall Li Qingling's action at that time. He smiled gently. It seemed that there was one more person to thank. "You're here." Su Li pushed the door open. She wore a black dress, and her quiet and elegant face appeared in front of everyone. "Come in." Bing Feng nodded slightly to show his respect, but he felt strange in his heart. It was hard to imagine that the girl in front of him, who looked like a young girl, could swing up a giant corpse of several floors. That scene was so profound that he would never forget it in his life. Soon, everyone sat down. Su Li looked gentle. She looked at Bing Feng and said calmly, "Since you are here, Qi Tian should have known my existence. Why doesn't he show up?" "Yes, Grand Elder Su." Bing Feng was refreshed and explained hurriedly, "When you left Qingshui Circle, Ni sect encountered a crisis. The Lord of Ni sect is now holding the fort in Ni sect, so he hasn't come back yet." Su Li had already guessed it. She asked this question just to confirm it. Hearing Bing Feng's words, she couldn't help but nod. "I will go to meet him in person, but before that." Su Li looked at Mada. Mada was immediately shocked and slightly bowed his head. "Holy girl, what can I do for you?" "As long as I can do it, I will do it without hesitation." "I have never been a holy girl. You know that." Su Li shook her head. "There is indeed one thing that I need your help with." "Holy." "Grand Elder Su, you are exaggerating." Seeing that Su Li's attitude was so peaceful, Mada was flattered and said, "It's my honor to help you." Su Li showed a faint smile. "I will help you cure Ma Jintian's injury." Mada's magic treasure helped her to break through successfully. She helped Mada deal with the zombie, so they were even. As for reincarnation mirror, the initiator was White Demon. Strictly speaking, Mada and others were just pawns, so there was no need to make things difficult for them. Now, Mada used the force of the whole city to collect Black Lotus stones, which was several times more efficient than her. Of course, she had to give something in return. Mada naturally didn't know the reason, so he was greatly moved and burst into tears in excitement. Grand Elder Su, I feel guilty. Bing Feng didn't understand the ins and outs, but when he saw Mada's appearance, he couldn't help but feel sad. He cupped his hands to Su Li and left the room directly, leaving the space for them. Su Li quietly watched Mada crying and didn't say a word. When Mada calmed down a little, she said, "Let bygones be bygones. Don't worry about it. What kind of magic treasure is the green barrier you took out a few days ago?" Mada was redeemed at this moment, and his whole face was glowing. Although the corners of his eyes were still red, it didn't prevent him from answering Su Li, "That is the remnant of Tianhe tripod." Tianhe. Su Li's eyes flashed with a touch of understanding. "Then your identity?" Mada smiled bitterly. "On the surface, I was a talent of an ordinary holy sect, but secretly, I was a spy of Tianhe sect. There are many people like me who were planted by Tianhe sect. At that time, I received an order and entered the reincarnation mirror with my son with the secret help of Tianhe sect. The purpose was not for you, but to find the remnant of the treasure Tianhe tripod. Later, after we escaped, we found that we were in Chimo Circle." Su Li nodded gently and thought about it. At this time, Mada seemed to have made up his mind and lowered his voice. "Grand Elder Su, I don't know how much you know about Tianhe sect, but Tianhe sect is definitely not as simple as it looks on the surface. I was just an ordinary servant in Tianhe sect. I accidentally saw something I shouldn't see, and then I fell unconscious. When I woke up, I found that my talent had reached the level of talent. I was overjoyed and worked hard to cultivate to the level of Little Holy Sun. When I was about to fight for the position of Holy Sun, I was suddenly secretly arranged to be a spy of other holy sections. Later, I knew that my talent and cultivation were exchanged for my lifespan." Mada pointed to his face. "Now, I am only 3,000 years old, and my cultivation has reached Huashan realm. No matter what, I should not be so old. Tianhe sect has the means to turn the rotten into the magical, so they must have planted spies in other holy sections. What they want is not small. Grand Elder Su, you should also be careful." Su Li narrowed her eyes slightly. Her understanding of Tianhe sect was limited to the description of Fang Yuan and Tianyek Attic. Because of Fang Yuan, she had no contact with Tianhe sect, but she didn't feel bad about it. But now after hearing Mada's words, she realized that she was careless. In Ni sect, Su Mu and Su Yang were from Tianhe sect. The relationship between them showed that they were both enemies and friends. It was very clear that something was wrong, but she had always ignored it. "I will pay attention to this matter. Let's not mention it for the time being." Putting away her thoughts, Su Li's expression returned to normal. "It may take a lot of manpower to get what I want. Time is pressing. Let's arrange it first." After a while, Li Hong looked strangely at the warriors of all levels who were summoned by him. "Now I have an urgent task for you, which is of great importance." This group of warriors had been unable to help because of the previous disaster, and they were almost suffocated. At this moment, when they were summoned, they immediately shouted, "Lord of the Saber King, what do you want us to do? Just tell us. As long as we can help, we will not hesitate to go through fire and water. We will not hesitate to help." Under the excitement of the crowd, Li Hong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Please collect the stones, just the one in my hand. It's better to get a whole one, the bigger the better." Li Hong took out a black lotus stone, and the warriors suddenly became silent and stared at each other. Wasn't this the most common black stone in Chimo Circle? Did he ask them to gather here to carry the stones? Seeing that the crowd was restless, Li Hong immediately added, "You also know that if Lord Suli didn't help us at the critical moment, our Ma camp would have been destroyed. At this moment, she wants to use these black stones for a special purpose, and it's the time when she needs you. This is not an ordinary task. I want you to collect as many black stones as possible in the shortest time. Can you do it?" As soon as these words came out, the dissatisfaction in everyone's eyes instantly disappeared and turned into fighting spirit. "Brothers, let's go. We must dig the biggest one for Lord Suli. Go, go, go. Go to the dead zone to dig. The zombies are all dead, so the dead zone is safe. Let's take a risk and dig in the depths of the dead zone, where the black stones are the purest. For Lord Suli, let's go. Go, go, go." In the blink of an eye, all the warriors who gathered here went away. Li Hong was stunned for a moment, and then showed a big, bright smile. Grateful and grateful. These were the warriors of Chimo's circle. Chapter 654. The next day, Suli received a large number of black lotus stones from Mada, which were needed for her practice. Naturally, she changed her residence to a palace on the upper level of the mountain city. Although the palace didn't look big, the space inside was widened enough to accommodate several mountain cities. Space belonged to the simple use of immortals. This was the result after Bing Feng communicated with Qi Tian. For now, Su Li's strength was beneficial to him. Only by defeating Bai Mo could he talk about the future of Chimo's circle. In the huge palace, Su Li quietly looked at the hills piled up by black lotus stones, and she looked relaxed for a moment. With the support of the entire camp, the time to develop the transforming sword was shortened by 90%. Maybe it would take her less than a month to develop the magical power completely. The only regret was that her 18th grade lotus platform lacked the 6th grade lotus core, so she could only develop the 12th grade magic sword. This time, her cultivation recovered, and the connection with the perfect chakra was clearer. It seemed to stay in one place and didn't move. Her pneuma was so stable that it didn't seem to be integrated by the divine thunder of the 5 elements. It wouldn't be too late to look for it after she developed the transforming sword. Thinking of this, Su Li sat cross-legged in the first pile of black lotus stones and slowly closed her eyes. The whole hall fell into silence. At this moment, in front of the mountain gate of Tianhe Holy Sect in Qingshui Circle, the mountain-protecting tactical matrix rippled, and a slender figure appeared. Fang Yuan looked solemn. He still wore the black robe of casual practitioners, but his beard and hair had been cleaned. It seemed that he had recovered a little spirit. Eldest brother. At the moment when he appeared, Grazing Mu, who was practicing in seclusion in the Saint Temple, suddenly felt something. He suddenly opened his eyes, waved his sleeves to open the gate, and walked to the mountain gate. In front of the mountain gate, Fang Yuan looked up at the top of the mountain towering into the clouds, and was about to step up. Suddenly, a gray-clothed old servant with an old face appeared in front of him and bowed. "First Holy Son, you are back." Fang Yuan frowned faintly, but he was not surprised. He nodded and said, "Old ancestor sent you here." The gray-clothed old servant squinted his eyes with a smile and said, "First Holy Son, the old ancestor invites you." Fang Yuan glanced at the familiar pneuma that was approaching quickly, and said in a calm tone, "Let's go." In the sky, Fang Mu's figure stopped abruptly. He stood in the air and stared at the empty mountain gate, as if the 2 figures he just saw were just illusions. "Uncle Chen." A thought hidden in the depths of Fang Mu's awareness quietly surfaced, maybe. Maybe, you haven't come into contact with the real Tianhe sect. Fang Mu's eyes darkened and he fell into silence. In the secret place, in front of the regular and towering stone hall, Fang Yuan raised his head and glanced at the sky that suddenly dimmed. He had been here countless times, but ever since the bloody catastrophe of the Holy Spirit, he had only been here once. This was the second time. Following Fang Yuan into the stone hall, he felt a breath of vitality. It was familiar and strong, so strong that Fang Yuan had goosebumps on his back. He used to like the aura here until he vaguely guessed the source of the vitality. Ever since Her Highness ran away from home, the ancestor has often asked about you. The gray-clothed old servant led the way in front and looked back from time to time with a smile. In the quiet passage, the greeting of the gray-clothed old servant was more like a horrible spell, extremely gloomy. Fang Yuan chose to remain silent until he walked to the door of the inner hall. The gray-clothed old servant stopped on one side and lowered his head. Fang Yuan glanced at him and reached out to open the door a little. Whoosh, the life force that was so dense that it made one's hair stand on end leaked out from the cracks, almost suffocating him. He held his breath and glanced at the gray-clothed old servant who was silently breathing deeply. He did not hesitate to walk into the hall and closed the door. Bang, the sound of the collision echoed in the hall. Countless black lines like blood vessels lit up as if they were frightened, and the hall was illuminated with blood red. But soon, this blood red color dimmed, and the hall fell into darkness again. Fang Yuan followed his memory and walked into the center of the hall. His eyes fell straight on the throne that was more like a coffin with blood red color in the dark. An intermittent voice came from the throne. Outer appearance, such. Have you played enough? Fang Yuan's expression remained unchanged. He bowed his head and said, Old ancestor. Now there are several major changes in the general trend of Qingshui Circle. Old ancestor, your insistence may also change. Crack, a clear cracking sound came from the throne, and then Fang Yuan heard that the voice of the old ancestor became much more coherent. What changes? Fang Yuan clenched his fists in his sleeves and tried to make himself not nervous. He said in a steady tone, someone resisted the Fate Palace. Her name is Su Jouzhou. She led the Ni sect to win the first place and was favored by the natural law. She got in touch with the Qimo Circle and suppressed the Fate Palace with blazing sky. She made the 27 holy sects surrender and gathered the practitioners' army. Speaking of this, Fang Yuan paused and raised his voice a little. I see hope. This time, there were more cracks in the throne. After a long silence, a voice came out. What, hope? Fang Yuan stretched out his hand and pointed between his eyebrows. A shadow of a picture scroll was pulled out and then quickly solidified. This was the fake treasure of Tianhe sect, Tianhe. The Milky Way, which didn't show any spirituality in the outside world, seemed to be alive in this special stone hall. It twisted unwillingly in Fang Yuan's hands, like a flat long snake, with a feeling of greasy. Without your method, we can also move the Fate Palace, defeat Baimo, and save Qingshui Circle. Crack. 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 As soon as the voice fell, Fang Yuan's pupils suddenly shrank. He saw 3 ferocious and huge cracks on the surface of the black throne, as if the throne would completely collapse in the next moment. I have been painstakingly planning for this for thousands of years. Do you want to give up? The voice in the throne was calm and coherent without any anger. Fang Yuan felt cold all over as if he fell into an ice cellar, and his lips began to turn white. The power of the great emperor. After seeing blazing sky in Ni sect and angering the old ancestor, he could finally confirm that the old ancestor was also a great emperor. Tianhe sect was protected by a great emperor. No wonder that the Fate ancestor had always been full of fear of Tianhe sect after eroding the 3 saints' sects and didn't even test it. Was this the tacit understanding between the 2 great emperors? Since the old ancestor was a great emperor, why didn't he stand up and fight against Baimo with Qingshui Palace? At this moment, Fang Yuan thought of a lot. He deliberated for a moment and said under great pressure, it's not giving up. It's just one more way. Isn't it good? Ha 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 ha, the laughter came from the throne. In the hall that was sometimes dim and sometimes bloody red, it was full of inexplicable meaning. Fang Yuan, why do you try your best to help that person and even have the courage to confront me? Fang Yuan held his breath and heard the old ancestor continued, let me guess. Although you value affection, you rarely fall in love with outsiders. Except for the chess piece Su Li 1,000 years ago, Su Jouzhou, the grand elder of NI sect? Perhaps even you haven't realized that everything you do now has the shadow of Su Jojo. Fang Yuan was shocked and opened his mouth to refute, but he didn't know what to say. He really didn't know why he was impulsive. Was it really because Su Jojo used some means on him? No. That's not it. It was only because he saw a way for him to take revenge without harming the innocent. Old ancestor. Fang Yuan's tone was low. What you are doing now, is there any difference between what you are doing and Bai Mo's? I sacrifice myself for the greater good. The cracks on the black throne slowly disappeared. If you want to accomplish something, you must pay the price. You are too naive. Maybe the destruction of NI sect will make you sober. Old ancestor. Fang Yuan's face suddenly changed. What do you want to do? Two balls of ghost fire lit up in the throne with a little warning. I'm not so idle to kill an ant. Go down and return to your position. When you think clearly, come to me. Next time, I don't want to hear anything about NI sect from you. Fang Yuan wanted to ask again, but his body faded uncontrollably and disappeared completely in a few breaths. The hall returned to silence. After a long time, the gray-clothed old servant opened the door and bowed in. He lowered his head and asked softly, Master, you said that he is the son with the closest bloodline among your descendants. Why don't you tell him the truth? The truth? What is the truth? The gray-clothed old servant lowered his head even more. For example, Su Jojo is Su Li. Oh, the descendants of the undead clan are not so easy to die, just like her mother. The gray-clothed old servant bent his body and listened quietly, as if he heard nothing. The hall of NI sect was still so simple and elegant, with the smell of tranquilizing sandalwood. Yan Zai came in from outside the door and saw Hua Yan sitting alone at the long conference table. She stared blankly at the nothingness. Sister Hua. Yan Zai came and sat down in confusion. He asked softly, what's wrong with you? Hua Yan forced a smile, I'm just a little uneasy. I don't know what I'm worried about. Do you also have this feeling? Yan Zai looked slightly serious and lowered his voice subconsciously. I thought it was an illusion. But now Ancestor Blazing Sky is in charge of NI sect, and Master's whereabouts have been found. What danger can there be? It's dangerous because I can't think of it. Hua Yan stopped smiling. After a practitioner crossed the Huashan realm, the perception of fate would often affect reality. She was about to find more people to verify her idea, but she saw Fang Yuan hurriedly walking into the hall with an unprecedentedly serious expression. NI sect is in danger of destruction. Even Fang Yuan said so. Yan Zai's eyes widened. In his mind, Fang Yuan was the most calm and cautious. Now he even used the word, destruction. Hua Yan took a deep breath and regained her composure. Where is Xie Tianqing now? In the secret realm of Tianqing, Bai Xiu soon received the news of Xie Tianqing and couldn't help frowning. Even the high-level officials of NI sect had a premonition that a catastrophe would happen. What was Bai Mo planning? His lurking this time really made people uneasy. After thinking about it, Bai Xiu finally made up his mind to use astrology. Chapter 655. Under the deep blue hall, Bai Xiu slowly walked over with a solemn expression. Every step he took was like a ripple of water, rippling with lines, like the sea, and also like the most mysterious starry sky. Looking up, the deep night sky was full of stars. Some were dim, and some were flashing. With the special operation of the hall, the stars rotated slowly and deeply. This was not the real starry sky, but it had many connections with the mysterious starry sky. Only here could Bai Xiu really avoid the interference of the natural law and display the accurate art of astrology. Of course, the existence of the starry sky was changed from the natural law to him, so the burden was not ordinary. After performing this method, he would be in the psychic state for a year, and any great change of Qingshui circle could not be hidden from him. But after a year, what awaited him was a long sleep or death. No one could really see the fate, and he, who was about to bear the fate, would suffer unpredictable backfire. Even so, Bai Xiu still walked to the center of the deep blue hall, made a strange posture, and slowly closed his eyes as if he was praying. The contradiction between Ni sect and the Life Palace was irreconcilable, and the war was about to break out. He might let the tragedy of Qingshui Palace repeat. Buzz. After a slight buzz, the rotation of the starry sky on the dome of the hall immediately accelerated. Starlight fell down and poured into Bai Xiu's head. Whoosh! 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 Under the scouring of the starlight, Bai Xiu's shriveled and old body became full at a speed visible to the naked eye. His dry and pale hair turned into black hair in a few breaths, and all the wrinkles on his face disappeared. In a short moment, he returned to his handsome appearance. Specks of starlight surrounded his body, like elves dancing in the night. He naturally exuded a mysterious and profound feeling. At this moment, looking at him was like looking at the starry sky, mysterious and unspeakable. At a certain moment, Bai Xiu suddenly opened his eyes, and a silver light flashed in his eyes. He smiled, knelt on the ground respectfully, and said silently in his heart. Bai Xiu thanks the Star Lord for his blessing. Xia Tianwei waited quietly for the old ancestor. Even if he had waited here for a whole night, he did not show any impatience. Of course, he knew the pros and cons of the art of astrology, but the old ancestor had made up his mind, and he could not stop him. At this moment, he suddenly heard the sound of the door opening. He couldn't help but raise his head to see a young man who looked extremely similar to him walk out of the hall with a faint smile on his face. His eyes widened. Old ancestor. If not for the fact that he had not changed his clothes, Xia Tianwei would have thought that his father had an illegitimate child. The young man glanced at him, gathered his white robe, and said, "If he came out from here, would you still be alive to talk to me?" Xia Tianwei's expression relaxed as he smiled and nodded. Even though the old ancestor's appearance had changed, his personality was still the same as before. Fortunately, the art of astrology did not change the old ancestor's nature. In the records of the previous ancestors, the art of astrology was not without accidents. According to legend, in ancient times, there was an evil existence in the starry heavens that responded to the art of astrology and used it to possess the ancestor's body, nearly causing the heavenly star valley to suffer a calamity. It was unknown how the heavenly star valley killed that horrifying existence back then. Xia Tianwei took the seal from Bai Xiu's hand and said solemnly, "Old ancestor, be careful." Bai Xiu raised his brows and lightly nodded. Just when Bai Xiu left the secret realm of Tianqing, in the cave opened by the seal entrance of the Qi Mo circle, Qi Tian suddenly opened his eyes, and red flames flashed in his eyes. Ling Li was immediately awakened and stared at this person, who was probably the only great emperor left in the world. "Boy, I'm afraid I can't continue to stay here." Qi Tian's first words made Ling Li frown. He asked in a low voice, "What happened?" He did not doubt Blazing Heaven's sincerity in cooperating with him. After getting along with him these days, it was enough for him to see Blazing Heaven clearly. He was a magnanimous and righteous lord of a realm. He was aboveboard and disdained conspiracies. He was the complete opposite of the Fate ancestor who only knew how to hide in the dark. Qi Tian grinned. When he looked up, he seemed to see through the cave and saw the rolling clouds in the sky. The attention of natural law is getting more and more frequent. Bai Mo must have done something. If I continue to stay here, Ni sect will be in crisis. Ling Li took a breath and said cautiously, "But if you are not here, Ni sect will also be overturned by the Fate Palace. This is Bai Mo's plan." Qi Tian narrowed his eyes and said in a cold tone, "Bai Mo, you really deserve your reputation." Ling Li frowned tightly. After thinking about it, he couldn't do anything for the time being. The speed of bloodline awakening was far slower than the speed of crisis. Even after the guidance, his speed of bloodline integration was much faster than before. But there was still a long way to go to integrate completely. If the bloodline is fully awakened, he should be able to step into the Great Emperor, and his strength may be above me. Qi Tian's tone was full of emotion. Ling Qingshui really stepped into the realm of immortals at that time. Otherwise, he definitely could not let his son step into the Deshang realm just by integrating bloodline. Ling Li was silent for a moment and said helplessly, I lack time. Su Jojo also lacks time to grow up. Her talent is like a demon, even above you. And Baimo grasps this point and doesn't give you a chance to grow up. Before Chi Tian finished his words, he suddenly looked serious and snorted coldly, who is playing tricks? Get out. As he said, he clenched his fist and was about to punch. The figure hiding in the dark suddenly showed up and said hurriedly, Senior, please be merciful. I mean no harm. Chi Tian paused and saw the figure quickly outline. When Ling Li saw the man's face, he couldn't help but blurt out, Xie Tianwei. No. Xie Tianwei's pneuma was not so decadent. He looked at the young man's face carefully, and his expression gradually became strange, old ancestor of Tianqing. The young man was about to approach and saw that Chi Tian was still staring at him coldly. He couldn't help sweating and said with a hollow smile, Ling Li, how did you recognize me? I remember that you once said that you can't come out of the Tianqing secret realm, or you will definitely be noticed by Baimo. You are, Tianqing's secret realm. Tianqing Valley, although Chi Tian was in Qimo Circle, he was not unfamiliar with the forces of Qingshui Circle. He even knew more than some holy sections. Hearing Ling Li's words, the vigilance in his eyes suddenly disappeared. Bai Xiu came over and sat down. When he waved his hand, the surrounding stone wall disappeared instantly, and starlight filled the air. This is, Ling Li was surprised and doubtful. Then he saw Bai Xiu smile, I can come out naturally because I am blessed by starlight and not sensed by the natural law. Speaking of this, Bai Xiu stopped smiling. In my divination, I saw that Ni sect was destroyed by the world-ending thunder test, just like Qingshui Palace in the past. As soon as he said this, Chi Tian and Ling Li were instantly stunned, and their faces became gloomy at the same time. So, I left the secret realm. Bai Xiu stared at Chi Tian, 1 year. When you go back, tell Su Jojo that she only has 1 year. After 1 year, no matter how much she improves, she must come out to preside over the overall situation. Chi Tian's eyes flashed. Looking at the young face that didn't match Bai Xiu's at all, he seemed to understand something faintly. He nodded gently and said in a soft tone, I will tell her without missing a word. Ling Li looked at Bai Xiu's suddenly relaxed face, and faintly had a bad premonition in his heart, Senior, you, fate, there are many invisible threads intertwining with each other. Any change in fate will cause the threads to change shape. Bai Xiu turned his head and interrupted Ling Li's words. He chuckled, I can see it. No matter what Baimo will do next, I can see it in advance. Maybe I can take this opportunity to spy on the essence of Baimo's vital skill, which is of great use to you. What was the price of seeing it? Ling Li opened his mouth and wanted to ask, but in the end, he couldn't. He was afraid that he couldn't afford it. With these words of yours, I can rest assured. Chi Tian waved his hand to sweep away the ceiling boundary. His figure faded away quickly, and his voice lingered. Bai Xiu smiled again, and his eyes fell on Ling Li, who had a rather complicated expression, I will not put my hope on one person. Su Jojo has 1 year, so do you, and maybe even more. Ling Li was slightly stunned, and saw Bai Xiu turn around. Come with me. A moment later, Hua Yan gathered everyone in the hall, but it was not her, but Bai Xiu. Old ancestor. You. Xie Tianqing, who had been stationed in Ni sect for a long time, saw the old ancestor's appearance. His face changed dramatically. He wanted to say something, but was stopped by Bai Xiu. Bai Xiu glanced at the crowd in the hall with different expressions. His eyes paused on Fang Yuan and Ling Li, who was ignored by everyone. Then he waved his sleeves and scattered a piece of starlight. Seeing this, Xie Tianqing's guess came true, and his face became gloomier. After the palace was shrouded by strange starlight, Bai Xiu smiled and said slowly, except for a few people, including Lord Hua Yan, most of you are the talents in the reincarnation mirror. Now you gather here. Maybe you have different selfishness, but there is only one purpose. Bai Xiu frowned, and his expression suddenly became cold: revenge. Whether it is for myself, holy girl Su, or the Qingshui palace that was destroyed in that year, Bai Mo deserves to die. Old ancestor Tianxing, you can say what you want to say. Yan Zai raised his eyebrows. Although he was in awe of the mysterious master behind Tianyik Attic, in his mind, there was only one person who could instruct him. Bai Xiu smiled and was not angry. He continued, it took Su Jiuzhou just 10 years to make Ni sect a behemoth. But in essence, the one who can really be the enemy of Bai Mo is never you, only her. If she dies, Ni sect will inevitably be overturned. If she is injured, you can only avoid the Fate Palace, and you may not even be able to bear the pressure of holy sections. If she is missing, you can only shrink your combat power. Although there are 27 holy sects on your side, you still dare not take any action. Bai Xiu's eyes swept across the crowd sharply, and he said mercilessly, you, except Ling Li, are too weak. In this way, you will only become a burden for Su Jiuzhou to fight against Bai Mo. As soon as he said this, everyone's face changed slightly, and the hall was dead silent. The error-free chapter of The Poisonous Wife will continue to be updated in hand-to-hand bar without any advertisement. Please collect and recommend hand-to-hand bar. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please collect The Poisonous Wife. Hand-to-hand bar is updated the fastest. Chapter 656. Yan Zai's eyes flashed with shame. When he was about to speak, Bai Xiu continued, of course, it's not your fault. The years of cultivation are long. Even for ordinary golden core stage cultivators, 10 years is extremely short, let alone you. Facing a formidable enemy, you must be as strong as possible in a short time. I have a solution. What is it? Hua Yan glanced at the demoralized crowd and asked for them. Bai Xiu chuckled and pointed to the reincarnation mirror and black lotus ring enshrined in the center behind him, saying, in fact, it's not my solution. I just see a way leading to these two magic treasures. Everyone turned their eyes to the reincarnation mirror, and a complicated look flashed across their faces. The beginning of everything was this treasure, and now the reincarnation mirror actually became Su Jiuzhou's magic treasure. Seeing that the reincarnation mirror was still pretending to be dead, Bai Xiu raised his head slightly and said leisurely, Su Jiuzhou is at a critical moment and can't be disturbed. If you can stand up and give her a hand, you will be able to please your master. As soon as he said this, the reincarnation mirror trembled slightly in everyone's shocked eyes. Immediately, a phantom of a little beast appeared and stared at Bai Xiu, saying, really? You are not a spirit. How can you know my existence? Bai Xiu pointed to his eyes and smiled mysteriously. I see it. Of course, I see it. The little beast smiled proudly and controlled the reincarnation mirror to fly to the middle of the crowd. When it was about to be mysterious for a while, a sudden idiot behind it almost made it fall on the table. Yan Zai turned around and saw that black lotus ring also flew up and landed on the long table. In addition to the reincarnation mirror, when did Master get another treasure? He recalled for a moment and found that this black ring was on her ring finger from the moment he met her. 2 treasures. Mr. actually had more treasures than a normal sage sect. Everyone was speechless for a while. In the face of the 2 treasures, they seemed to have lost the ability to speak. Only Ling Li and Fang Yuan looked as usual. The former had already communicated with them, and the latter also had treasures and was faintly worried. He didn't care much about what happened in front of him. Tell me, little old man, what do you want this idiot to do? Black Lotus's tone was like that of a big brother. Samsara was furious, but because of the lingering power he had, he didn't dare say anything. Seeing this, Bai Xiu came up with an idea. He smiled slightly and still said to Samsara, Senior Reincarnation Mirror Spirit, only a few decades have passed in the mirror world, but hundreds of years have passed in the outside world. Does it mean that you can now also create a space to slow down the flow of time, which is beneficial to cultivation? Samsara was stunned. He blurted out, how did you know? Really? Yen Zai exclaimed in surprise. Samsara realized that he had lost his composure and coughed lightly before continuing, what you said is true. Controlling time is what this sovereign is best at. Ever since I swallowed a mirror from who knows where, this sovereign's injuries have mostly healed. He really ate the fate-returning mirror. Bai Xiu's eyelids twitched, but he resisted the heartache and continued to ask, what is the rate of time flow? Samsara's arrogant expression instantly froze. He looked at everyone in embarrassment. Up until now, I've only recovered to 20 times. Yen Zai's expression became strange. 1 year and 20 years were indeed a long time for mortals. But for practitioners who could practice for hundreds or thousands of years at a time, what was 20 years? No wonder you didn't take the initiative to show up. Bai Xiu suddenly understood. His purple starry eyes turned, and threads gradually appeared in his eyes. He relied on these threads to judge the direction. If he used the secret method of astrology, more hidden threads would emerge. But such threads could not last as long as the threads he usually saw, and he could only maintain them for a moment. But a moment was enough. He clearly saw that there were countless secret threads connecting the reincarnation mirror and the Black Lotus ring. Or, these two treasures were originally one. Thinking of this, Bai Xiu cupped his hands to Black Lotus ring and chuckled, Qianmu, if you let these juniors lose the last chance to strengthen themselves because of your ridiculous self-esteem, Su Jouzhou will not spare you when she comes back. At that time, your position as the boss of magic weapons will not be guaranteed. Old Bai, are you tired of living? Black Lotus's spirit body emerged with a gloomy face. He was not a stupid donkey like Samsara, so he could naturally see that Bai Xiu's state at the moment was not right. Ho ho, for the sake of this old man, how about you assist the reincarnation mirror once? Black Lotus's old face darkened. He stared at Bai Xiu, and then turned his head to glance at the young people present. Finally, he sighed softly and said, for your sake, it won't happen again. In addition, I have a condition. The world in the mirror is also open to me. Bai Xiu looked at reincarnation mirror. Although Samsara was a little reluctant, he nodded without resistance when he thought that Black Lotus was actually an assisting treasure for him. Black Lotus snorted coldly, and a red knot appeared out of thin air from the ring. It was fastened to the handle of the bronze mirror and turned into a black ornament. A strange pneuma shrouded the two treasures, and they soon merged into one. Samsara closed his eyes to sense for a moment, and opened his eyes in surprise, 1,000 times. Everyone was moved. The time difference of 1,000 times meant that 1 year was equivalent to 1,000 years. The two treasures in Master's hands were so incredible. That's good. Bai Xiu laughed and was not surprised at all, but it's not enough. He touched the interspatial ring with his finger and took out a walnut-sized azure crystal. There were many lines on its surface, which were as deep as the starry sky. This is the starry sky essence that I condensed for 10,000 years. It can replace the celestial spar and be used to set up the spirit-gathering formation. Its effect is even better than the celestial spar. It can also conceal the secrets of heaven, so that you won't be discovered by White Demon in advance. After saying this, Bai Xiu threw the starry sky essence into the mirror. The mirror rippled and swallowed it completely, and a strong starlight aura diffused. He deserves to be called Old Ancestor Heavenly Star. He can even see a trace of the essence of the treasures used by Master. Yen Zai was excited, but there was no lack of admiration in his thoughts. Hua Yen took a deep look at Bai Xiu. Everything in the world had a price to be obtained. What did Old Ancestor Heavenly Star pay for suddenly seeing through the essence? Old Bai, this is not like you. The ring hanging on the reincarnation mirror shook, and Qian Mu's spiritual body appeared. I have never seen you so generous. What can you get by doing this? As long as I can defeat White Demon, I will make a profit. Bai Xiu sighed, I'm ashamed. Even in this state, I still can't infer the real purpose of White Demon. After the destruction of the Qingshui Palace, he could clearly expand, unify the Qingshui Circle, and even become an immortal. But he didn't, and even left many hidden dangers. Ling Li frowned slightly. After thinking about it, what Bai Xiu said was not unreasonable. Whether it was the peak holy sects or many other holy sects, he just slowly infiltrated behind them, never used fierce means, and rarely took action in person. There is something strange in it. I will try to find out in this year. Your task is to strive to break through in the reincarnation mirror, so that you can't only be a burden when the final battle comes. Hua Yan was silent for a moment, and nodded, just do as Senior Bai said. But if everyone enters the reincarnation mirror, how can NI sect maintain operation? Bai Xiu laughed, Tianyik Attic, will make arrangements. Lord Hua, you have to work hard and stay outside to make decisions. If even Tianyik Attic can't find out the movement of the Fate Palace, your NI sect can't find it either. Hua Yan sighed helplessly, Senior, you are right. Next, all the high-level officials of NI sect and Linli building poured into the reincarnation mirror. Under the request of Bai Xiu, there was no ghost left. He practiced astrology and had enough understanding of the natural law. Even if the natural law was controlled by White Demon now, if he wanted to send the Annihilation Thunder test, he couldn't do it without a target. There must be a primer. This primer could be the evildoer who was envied by the natural law, the ghost that shouldn't stay in the world, or the evil practitioner who killed mortals indiscriminately and committed too many sins. If the ghost stayed in NI sect and was found by White Demon, he would have enough reason to use the fate skill to affect the natural law. He had to guard against it. An hour later, the hall was empty except for Bai Xiu and Hua Yan. Even Xie Tianqing was sent into the reincarnation mirror by Bai Xiu. Since he was in NI sect, it was meaningless for Xie Tianqing to stay here. It was better to practice more. Senior, what did you see? Hua Yan did not hide the worry in her eyes. You suddenly came out of the secret realm of Tianqing. A few days ago, Zai and I also felt uneasy. Did White Demon take action? I can't see it clearly. Bai Xiu sighed softly, but as long as I am still in NI sect, I can stop the damage in time and prevent White Demon from succeeding. If Su Jouzhou can take that step in this year, everything will become simple. The natural law can't do anything about the Great Emperor from the Mother Star. All the plans of White Demon will fail. Great Emperor, Hua Yan murmured and became speechless. Although she believed in Su Li's talent and that she could become the Great Emperor one day, in just 1 year, the possibility was close to zero. Just after all the people of NI sect entered the reincarnation mirror, the golden tower in the Life Palace suddenly flashed, and then seemed to lose power, dispelling the brewing thunder test. Swish! A white shadow flashed and landed in front of the golden tower. The white light dissipated, and it was Bai Ming. He stared at the dimming golden pagoda, his expression calm, and he remained silent. Su Zipei walked over silently and stopped behind him, looking docile. Bai Ming smiled. It makes the natural law unable to take action from the source. It seems that there are other secret existences in NI sect besides Su Jouzhou. Interesting. Su Zipei raised her head, saluted, and whispered, Master, I will go down to prepare for the second step. Go ahead. Bai Ming's voice was soft, and he looked in the direction of Jouzhou region. How are you going to solve my move? Chapter 657. It was quiet in the reincarnation mirror. Reincarnation mirror spirit could only maintain a palace-sized space under the difference of time flow rate of 1,000 times. Fortunately, for people of NI sect, it was enough to have a place to meditate and practice, and a palace was enough to be divided into many enclosed spaces for people to concentrate on practice. In one of the closed spaces, Ling Li was concentrating on integrating and digesting the blood. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and saw the shadow of Black Lotus Ring's ring spirit, Qian Mu, hovering in front of him. Brat, do you want to reconcile with your precious son? Keijai smiled meaningfully. I have a way. Do you want to give it a try? Ling Li stared at Qian Mu quietly and said, After your master comes back, won't he get even with you? Qian Mu's old face darkened, but he immediately smiled and said, Even if the sky falls, there are tall people to hold it up. What am I afraid of? Ling Li, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. In this space, there will be memory fragments inadvertently. You don't have the final say, but it's different with me. Ling Li was silent for a moment. What should I do? In another enclosed space, Su Buwang closed his eyes tightly and was about to enter a meditative state. Suddenly, a horrifying picture flashed in front of him and woke him up. What's going on? This reincarnation mirror also has the ability to scare people. Su Buwang muttered to himself. After waiting for a while, he found that there was no other movement. When he was about to meditate again, another picture flashed in front of him. This time, he finally saw it clearly. It was a scene in the reincarnation mirror. It was the scene when his mother and that man first met in the temple fair in the reincarnation mirror. He had seen the same scene when he was possessed by the blood stone. Could it be that there are still images from back then in this space? Su Buwang guessed in his heart. At this moment, the picture changed again to the scene where Su Jiuzhou met Yen Zai in the Black Stone Forest and broke into the Tsang Lei's cave together. These scenes originated from the memory of Yen Zai ring itself. Qian Mu did not need to steal Yen Zai's memory to restore it perfectly. But Su Buwang didn't know that after seeing this scene, he immediately overturned his previous conjecture. This is Fairy Sister and Brother Zai. Could it be Big Brother Zai's memories? Is it because of the change in the flow of time that we can see other people's memories? Su Buwang suddenly panicked. Would his memories be seen by others? No. The other people's cultivation is higher than mine, and they might have entered a meditative state long ago. They might not be able to see this scene, and it's very likely that only I can see it. Su Buwang was slightly relieved, and his thoughts became active again. Since he could see other people's memories, what was that person's past like? This wasn't the first time he had thought of this, but out of consideration for his reputation, he naturally wouldn't ask him directly. In fact, whenever he saw him, he would fly into a rage and refuse to communicate with him. Qian Mu, who was observing Su Buwang in the dark, saw his expression and suddenly smiled in his heart. He swept all the memories of Ling Li into his mind. Stupid donkey, wait for your death. You're definitely going to be the scapegoat. You want to surpass me as the boss of magic treasures? Dream on. Qian Mu hit his figure happily, and Su Buwang finally got what he wanted to see at this moment. Greetings, Lord Evil Monarch. Lord Evil Emperor. In the picture, the background of Xingtian Shrine appeared. Ling Li, dressed in a black battle suit, looked indifferent and walked into Xingtian Palace step by step. Su Buwang had never been to Xingtian Palace. At this moment, he couldn't help but widen his eyes and watch carefully. What do you want me to do? Ling Li pushed the door with no awe on his face. He looked up at the back of the throne in the shadow. After a while, a low voice rippled in the hall. There are too many talents in Ankue Valley. Ling Li's eyes darkened when he heard the words, I see. After that, he turned and left the hall without saying anything. Su Buwang's eyes flashed with disappointment when he saw this. Most of the talents in Ankue Valley were secretly eliminated, and the outside world blamed that person. He still had a fluke in his heart, thinking that he was slandered. He didn't expect it to be true, and it was the order of the Lord of Xingtian Shrine. Xingtian Shrine was really disgusting. Thinking of this, Su Buwang continued to watch. Soon after the talents in Ankue Valley were killed, he left Xingtian Shrine. He wanted to know why that person suddenly changed his behavior and let him go. The picture changed, and he came to the canyon full of purple poisonous mist. When he zoomed in, there was only the purple mist in front of him, and nothing could be seen. Suddenly, a blood light flashed, and a scream sounded. A corpse was thrown on the mountain wall and split into pieces. Ah! Senior fellow apprentice, help me. A practitioner in the costume of inherited disciple of Ankue Valley came in a hurry. When he walked halfway, another blood light flashed behind him, and the scream stopped abruptly. Ling Li's pale and blood-stained face appeared from the mist. His black robe was riddled with holes, and blood was flowing, which blended with the black color. If the camera wasn't close enough, it couldn't be seen at all. Perhaps Su Buwang had never seen him so embarrassed and breathless. Su Buwang's heart tightened, and a strange emotion rose in his heart. Am I feeling sorry for him? Are you kidding me? Su Buwang laughed at himself. How could I feel sorry for him? What a bitch. Ling Li, you can't escape. In the mist, more figures appeared. There were dozens of people, and they surrounded Ling Li angrily. You assassinated so many of my junior fellow apprentices. You can't absolve yourself from the blame even if you die 10,000 times. The talents of Ankoe Valley didn't give Ling Li a chance to breathe at all. Under the command of the leading talent, everyone swarmed up and attacked him together. Even though he knew that the person finally came back alive, Su Buwang couldn't help but be nervous when he saw this. How did he escape? At the critical moment, the picture suddenly blurred, as if the person deliberately blurred this memory, or, he didn't want to recall it. Su Buwang felt uncomfortable for a while. It felt like a storyteller was talking about the exciting part of a story, but the storyteller said, listen to the next story. No, it was even more uncomfortable than, listen to the next story. Unless he asked that person in person, he would never get the answer. But this uncomfortable feeling didn't last long, and Su Buwang's attention was attracted by the next scene. A huge palace appeared in the picture, reflecting the side face of a man in a black robe sitting on the throne. Not long after, Su Buwang saw himself coming in from outside the hall. He remembered that Ling Li had just come back at that time. Before that, he should have been fighting in Ankoe Valley. In such a short time, his injury couldn't get better, and it was very likely that he was still seriously injured. But he didn't realize this at that time. It was on that day that he uncharacteristically promised him to leave Xingtian Shrine and didn't stop him. Until today, Su Buwang still remembered how overjoyed he was that day. He was like a bird out of the cage, and finally had a chance to soar in the sky. At this time, the picture happened to show him disappearing from the big tactical matrix of Xingtian Shrine. Su Buwang was slightly stunned. He suddenly realized that this was the memory of that person. That was to say, that person had been paying attention to him from beginning to end. Unlike what he thought at the beginning, that person didn't care about his life at all. Swish! The picture returned to the Hall of Evil Emperor again. The next scene should be the scene that happened after he left. Su Buwang's spirit was refreshed. He stared at it intently for fear of missing any scene. At the moment when the boundary of Xingtian Shrine was closed, in the Black Palace, an indescribable bitterness appeared on the well-defined face of the white-haired young man. Su Buwang almost thought that his eyes were dazzled. Such an expression could actually appear on that person's face. Was it because of me? Su Buwang's heart beat like a drum. At this moment, a sigh seemed to ring in his ear. If you let him out like this, you can't explain to the palace master. A broken mirror lit up, and Su Buwang looked at the scene in the picture blankly. It turned out that he was suddenly let go because the master of Xingtian Shrine suddenly decided to let him marry into Huangxing Hall, and that person didn't want to be sorry to his mother, so, he let him go? How is it possible? Su Buwang laughed, and his hoarse voice scared himself. That person actually thinks about me? Am I crazy, or is the reincarnation mirror crazy? How can evil emperor be trapped by love? At least in front of others, I can't. Hearing this sentence from the black figure in the picture, Su Buwang's body suddenly shook and fell into silence. He was no longer a greenhorn, and many things had been confirmed from the outside world. His mother was not a maid of Xingtian Shrine, but holy girl Su who caused trouble in Qingshui Circle. Why did he lie to him at that time? Lord Evil Emperor, the palace master invites you. When Su Buwang was pondering, the picture changed again, and he entered the purple-black towering palace again, Xingtian Palace. Ling Li, do you know your mistake? Lord Palace Master, what are you talking about? What did I do wrong? I haven't settled accounts with you yet. You tarnished the bloodline of my Ling family, but you even protected that little bastard. Su Buwang saw that Ling Li was hit and vomited blood. His heart seemed to be cut open, and the pain was unbearable. I accidentally lost the Yang Jade Mask. Please punish me, Lord Palace Master. Bastard. Do you think I can't find that bastard because of this? How can I have such a stupid son like you? For a bastard brought back from outside, you dare to disobey my order regardless of the future of Xingtian Shrine? Get out. Su Buwang's eyes were dull. After a moment of silence, his eyes focused again, and he continued to watch the memory flow with concentration. Then, he saw a lot. It turned out that because of the Lihan tablet, he had to be controlled by Xingtian Shrine, and the price of using the Lihan sword was to devour his lifespan, so he was young and full of silver hair. In order to protect himself, he had to choose to alienate himself. Otherwise, as long as he showed a trace of love, the enemies in Xingtian Shrine were enough to kill him 10,000 times, not to mention the outside world. Even he could survive outside. It was the result of that person's confrontation with the Lord of Xingtian Palace. It was ridiculous that he had always thought that he was lucky to meet Uncle Fong. The error-free chapter of The Poisonous Wife will continue to be updated in the mobile game bar, and there is no advertisement in the website. Please collect and recommend the mobile game bar. If you like The Poisonous Wife, please collect. The Poisonous Wife is the fastest updated in the mobile game bar. Chapter 658. 1 second to remember, 800 mail sign Xiao divided by TalkNet, wonderful pop-up window free reading. The picture kept changing, and soon it came to the Tianjiao battle that Su Buwang was also familiar with. Seeing the scene at the end of the Divine Awareness, Su Buwang finally understood why that person disappeared and then left Xingtian Shrine. The Lord of Xingtian Palace was a terrible hoax. He was not that person's biological father at all, but an enemy. It was White Demon who used his bloodline to suppress his clansmen. After being saved by Su Jojo, he finally understood everything. Bloodline awakening. The more Su Buwang watched, the more uncomfortable he felt. Compared with that person, what was the grievance he suffered? It turns out that I am not only the descendant of Holy Girl Su, but also the lineal descendant of Qingshui Palace. I deserve to be called. Su Buwang thought with self-mockery, and the memory picture in front of him gradually faded away. At this moment, Su Buwang only felt that his heart was extremely calm. The knot in his heart in the past was opened, and his thoughts were clear, which made him gradually fall into a strange state. All of a sudden, a piece of memory surfaced in his mind. Su Buwang was in a daze because the state was broken, and he murmured, "Whose memory is it?" It was a mountain top. If he remembered correctly, it was an Ni sect. In the picture, Ling Li sat cross-legged, with reincarnation mirror and black lotus ring in front of him. The dialogue between them was extremely clear. Achoo! The reincarnation beast sneezed as it lay on the ground. It immediately looked warily at Qian Mu, who was sitting with his legs crossed. I have a bad premonition. Did you cause trouble? Making trouble? Qian Mu looked helpless and spread his hands. This reincarnation mirror is your territory. What can I do? At most, I can only go in and see the cultivation state of those young people. You're right. The suspicion in the eyes of the reincarnation beast faded away, and it lay down again. Qian Mu smiled faintly, and suddenly sneezed. His expression was slightly stiff, and he scratched his head. Did I overlook something? Hemp Camp, Chimo region. In the hall that was full of piles of rubble, a bright black light penetrated through. The space stagnated for a moment, and then all the rubble that passed by turned into powder until it fell on the wall at the end of the hall, silently leaving a crack in the wall. In the darkness, she gently waved her fingertips, and the black light stopped. Then it flashed back and lingered on her fingertips like a black ring. The sword light flashed. The sword light was reflected in Su Li's eyes. The power of the divine ability was far beyond her expectation, and the amount of black lotus stones it absorbed was also far beyond her imagination. The black lotus stones around the camp had all been gathered in this palace in just a few days. Now in the wasteland outside the camp, it was rare to see black lotus stones. But even so, after absorbing all the black stones, she could only cultivate 3 supernatural powers. In disappointment, Su Li tested the supernatural power a little. She only released a little power, but it almost let the Black Lotus magic sword penetrate the palace and hurt innocent people. If I can forge a 12th grade divine sword, Su Li couldn't help but think about it, but she soon restrained her thoughts. Ma Ying was no longer able to collect a large number of Black Lotus stones in a short time. Now that her strength had greatly increased, she could run amok in the Qimo circle. It was time to explore the whereabouts of Su Bai and the divine thunder of the 5 elements. Thinking of this, Su Li waved her hand and turned all the gray-white gravel in the hall into stone powder, which was a gift for Ma Ying. After the energy in the gravel was absorbed, the hardness did not decrease but increased, and it had a certain viscosity. It was a good raw material for building city walls. After finishing this step, Su Li's figure disappeared like a bubble. When she reappeared, she was already high above the sky outside Zyma camp. She took a deep look at Ma Ying before turning around and flying off into the distance, disappearing into the horizon. 3 days later, when Li Hong came to clean up the rubble, he found that the building was empty. He hurriedly went to inform Ma Da. Ma Da was not surprised by this. He only chuckled with a hint of hope in his smile. Maybe the day that the Realm Lord is looking forward to will soon arrive. 2 days ago, Su Li stopped in front of the tall immortal hall with a calm look. Compared with Qingshui Circle, Qimo Circle was much smaller. In just 1 day, she crossed more than half of Qimo Circle and came here. She sensed that the perfect chakra was close at hand, but it seemed to be far away. But here. Boom, the towering gate of the immortal hall opened suddenly. It was not the same as when Ma Jintian came here before, which only opened a little. Now, the gate was completely open. Then, the warriors of Qimo Circle, led by Bing Feng, came out in 2 rows, leaned against the gate, and saluted respectfully. "Welcome, Grand Elder Su." Bing Feng shouted first, and then everyone shouted in unison, which was as loud as thunder. "Welcome, Grand Elder Su." Su Li narrowed her eyes slightly and said nothing. Bing Feng approached and said with a smile, "Grand Elder Su, the Realm Lord has been waiting for a long time." "Senior Qi Tian, you are too polite." Su Li chuckled and walked into the gate with her hands behind her back. After a few flashes, she left Bing Feng behind and crossed a long distance into the hall. "Senior Qi Tian, please don't blame me for coming here rashly." Bing Feng glanced at the hall from afar and ordered everyone to close the gate. Next, the conversation between the 2 circles would be held. He wanted to ensure that such a communication would not be disturbed by any external things. "Ha, Su Li, don't regard me as an outsider." Qi Tian waved his hand, and the dim hall was instantly brightened. Qi Tian, who was tall and had red hair, waved his hand and came down from the throne with a hearty smile. He looked slightly serious. "Baimo controlled the natural law to take action, so I had to come back in advance." Su Li frowned, and Qi Tian said again, "However, with the help of the old ancestor of Tianqing Valley, you don't have to worry too much about the safety of Ni sect. He asked me to tell you that you only have 1 year to improve wholeheartedly. After 1 year, it will be the final battle." Su Li raised her eyebrows slightly. Bai Xiu is so confident. There are a lot of secrets in Tianqing Valley. This time, he also put in all his effort. Qi Tian shook his head meaningfully. "As far as I know, those who used that kind of astrology didn't end well." Su Li frowned slightly, but soon relaxed. At this time, she already had the necessary awareness. If the war started, Bai Xiu would not be the only sacrifice. "Elder brother Qi Tian, you should know why I am here." Su Li got straight to the point. Qi Tian nodded and exclaimed, "You were so bold in the Battle of Ziyun House. But, you really succeeded." He waved his sleeves, "Follow me." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Li saw the throne split into 2 halves and moved to both sides. The entrance of a small world appeared. "This is Su Li's pupils shrank slightly. Qi Tian laughed, I am at least in the Deshang realm. I was really bored for a long time, so I made this thing, which is equivalent to the evolution of the Junior Emperor field. The situation of the chakra realm is a little complicated, so I have to put it in there. So, I have to inconvenience you. Qi Tian looked apologetic. Su Li understood what he meant. If she entered this small world, her life would not be under her control. It doesn't matter. I believe in elder brother Qi Tian. Su Li stepped into the small world without saying anything. Qi Tian's eyes were full of admiration, and he followed her closely. Behind the door, her eyes rippled like water for a moment, and finally became clear. What came into Su Li's eyes was not the pale space she imagined, but a beautiful valley. She couldn't help but be surprised. Qi Tian looked rough, but she didn't expect that his mind was so delicate. It was too boring, so I made some embellishments. You are the first guest here. Qi Tian came from behind, smiled, and pointed to the ice coffin erected in the valley, saying, No, you are the second one. Su Li saw the frozen figure, and suddenly looked serious. She flashed to the ice coffin and whispered to herself, Su Bai. At this moment, Su Bai's perfect face was full of hideous cracks, like a porcelain vase that was about to break. If it was not frozen, it was likely to be broken. He is in a strange state now. Blazing Heaven walked over and said in a solemn tone, by relying on the power of the perfect wheel, he was barely able to absorb the 5 elements divine lightning into his body. Moreover, because of the strike you endured, the 5 elements divine lightning showed signs of fusing into one. However, even though he is the spirit of divine lightning, the fused 5 elements divine lightning is still not something he can withstand. Qi Tian glanced at Su Li's side face when he said this. Fortunately, I found it in time and temporarily sealed him, so that he won't continue to destroy himself. If this happened to you, with your physical body, it is most likely that you will explode like fireworks, and your soul will fly away, and your bones will disappear. Su Li suddenly understood, and her heart was heavy. Thinking of Su Bai's strange behavior in the Battle of Ziyun House, she finally understood. He knew that she couldn't bear the merged 5 elements thunder, so he made his own decision. The spirit of the divine thunder was so stupid that it made people feel distressed. Is there any way to save him? Su Li turned around, no longer looking at Su Bai, and stared at Qi Tian with burning eyes. Qi Tian seemed to have expected Su Li's question, and smiled slightly. First of all, you have to understand what level the 5 elements thunder will become after it is merged. The thunder of tranquility. Su Li blurted out, and then added, my understanding of the thunder of tranquility is just on the surface. No wonder you are so bold. The ignorant are fearless, Qi Tian sighed, as the daughter of luck, I am afraid that only people like you can still be alive and kicking in the case of contact with the thunder of tranquility. The thunder of tranquility is a thunder method that can only be mastered by immortals, and its horror is even above the world-ending thunder. Qi Tian smiled, in other words, if you can master the thunder of tranquility, the natural law of Qing Shui circle can't do anything to you. Su Li's eyes flickered. Her hunch was right. Was the thunder of tranquility the key to the final battle? Her painstaking collection was not in vain. But you overestimate yourself and underestimate the thunder of tranquility. Qi Tian shook his head and warned, judging from your previous performances, your physical body seems to have exceeded the limit of the human clan and become a half-immortal. But it is far from enough to master the thunder of tranquility. You know, even among the immortals, there are very few people who can master the thunder of tranquility. Su Li was silent when she heard that. She was not affected by Qi Tian, but was thinking about a question, and soon asked it. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.